Let's do the AM news now. And the government has announced a 10% increase in minimum wage, raising it from 18 cedis 15 pesos to 19 cedis 97 pesos now. But in a time of rising cost, is this enough to make a real difference in the lives of workers? For many Ghanaians, earning minimum wage, every cedi count, yet basic necessities like food and transport continue to eat away at their earnings. So what does this increase truly mean for the average worker? My colleague Emmanuel Jivenu hits the street to find out.
Joseph Ejay is a factory worker. Every day, he puts hours of hard work, but his salary barely covers his survival. 3 meals a day? That's a luxury he can't afford. For Joseph, lunch is the only proper meal he gets. His go-to choice? Beans and gari. It's cheap, filling, and keeps him going.
Thank you.
He comes to this popular joint in Kokomemle every afternoon, but even that is becoming too expensive.
Money, it can't help me because every day I eat 40 cedi, 50 cedi. That money there can't help me at all because it's small. It's small, yeah. A day is 30 cedi, 40 cedi price, okay for everybody. Yeah, because the 19 points is not good though. I can't do anything for me at all because I think 30 cedi or 40 cedi is okay for everybody.
A 10% wage increase was supposed to bring relief, but for Joseph, it barely covers the cost of one meal, let alone his transport, rent, or any other daily expenses. Across town, at another food joint, Benjamin Naughty shares his frustration.
I don't think 19 or 20 cedis would do something. Even what I eat in the afternoon will cost me, let me see, about 50 cedis. So giving me 19 cedis for a day, just look at it. Even giving your child, maybe, let me see, 10 cedis, what can he buy with that 20 cedis or 10 cedis? So 19 cedis, I don't think is good.
Benjamin's frustration is shared by many workers who feel the wage increase is out of touch with the reality of rising prices. Richard Adegu, another worker, spends 3 times the minimum wage daily, and he's not happy about it.
As a worker, to work and then be paying 90 cedi, 90 pesos a day. Why are we slaves? Are we still slaves, or what? How can you cater for yourself and then your family? You can't do anything. You can't move forward.
For Richard, the financial squeeze is real. The numbers simply don't add up. But not everyone is dissatisfied. Richard Kasim, for one, believes the government is making an effort.
Last year, the previous government increased it by 23%, right? So if less than 2 months, this government is able to increase by 10%, at least it will take part of my cost I'll be making for the month, which is enough for me. It has taken part of my burdens off. It's going to take off e-levy. It's going to take off betting tax. Where is he going to get the money to be able to increase above the 10%? You have to know that he's squeezing from one end to another to make sure he will cushion us for us to feel okay in this country.
A 10% increase, some call it a step in the right direction. Others say it's nowhere near enough. But what do you think? Does 19 cedis 97 pesos a day make life better? Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy News, Accra.
Finance Minister K.C. Latofosun has revealed to President John Mahama's cabinet that the economy is in a far worse state than previously known. This was disclosed by presidential spokesperson Felix Kwakye Ofosu during a press briefing after President Mahama's first cabinet meeting on Thursday. More of that in a moment, but this revelation comes on the same day the president, during negotiations for base pay with organized labor, stated that while it was known the economy was in crisis, some of his recent discoveries suggested a reckless and possibly criminal mismanagement of the economy by the Akufo-Addo-led government. Presidential Affairs correspondent Maxwell Agbagba has more in this report.
During the base pay negotiations with organized labor, The president noted that while the economic crisis before the elections was well known, his recent findings pointed to reckless and potentially criminal mismanagement by the Kufuor-led government.
We all knew the economy was in crisis, but some of the things I'm discovering myself, it's been a criminal handling of our economy. And Ghana is a crime scene, actually, because how a government can have been so reckless, I cannot understand. But we're faced with a reality, and our options are very few. We can behave like the ostrich and hide our heads in the sand and let the economy crash. But then what effect would it have on Ghanaian households and everybody? And so I've told him, I said, cut expenditure as much as you like. Even we ourselves in Office of Government Machinery, cut as much of our budget as you like.
Addressing the media after President Mahama's first cabinet meeting, presidential spokesperson Felix Kwakye Ofosu stated the finance minister Cassiel Ato-Forson revealed the economy is in an even worse state than previously known before the elections.
We campaigned strongly on Ghana's failing economy, and indeed our fears were borne out when the finance minister made his briefing. The situation is dire. The numbers are even worse than we had known in the period of the elections. But the minister, the president, and others involved in the management of the economy were confident that the proposals, the policy propositions, and the program that President Mahama has put on the table were sufficient to turn around the situation.
He also announced that the Minister for Energy and Green Transition will in the coming days address Ghanaians on concerns about intermittent power supply.
What I can say is that the Energy Minister is aware of the situation, and in the coming days he will be engaging the public.
Felix Kwakye Ofosu also announced the full list of cabinet members.
First on the list is the Minister for Finance, the Minister for the Interior, Minister for Health, Minister for Defense, the Attorney General, and Minister for Justice.
He assured Ghanaians that the government remains on course to implement the 24-hour economy policy as promised by President Mahama.
The briefing from Mr. Tano and his team shows, I beg your pardon, that we are on course to ensuring a smooth takeoff. And in due course, the 24-hour secretariat would be engaging the Ghanaian media.
Well, the Energy Minister, John Abdullah Jinapong, has urged Ghanaians to be patient as the government works to resolve the country's power challenges. Speaking on Asempa FM's Ekosi saying on Thursday, he attributed the current erratic supply to a fragile in the energy sector inherited by the government. He assured the public that long-term solutions are being implemented and predicted stability within 2 weeks. John Jinapong reaffirmed the government's commitment to strengthening the sector and called for patience as efforts continue towards a reliable power supply.
But I've tried to be very sure, say we would be able to establish a trend and see say a nationwide problem. And as a way, isolated outages be a ABBA system name.
Okay,
what's
issues,
happening?
Two issues.
Okay.
First of all, system now you're inheriting, you're very challenged.
Okay.
Be our sector name say a name we inherited a very weak energy sector. October 2024, 20th, and in case almost shut West African pipeline.
Yes.
No more maintenance. Sure. Aban decided to more shut it. Because no one is here shut here. Challenge, Baba.
Yeah.
Elections will draw. You expect that government equal election just 2 months. February.
Okay.
But now January. Yazumi office. We didn't have enough light crude oil. We didn't have HFO. Distillate fuel crowd, and now just 5 hours. And now we have a major challenge. That's what we've inherited. I mean, I've just done about 2 weeks. Near a binding my and then you couldn't say. It is open solutions are all immediate solutions, and medium-term solutions, and a long-term solutions. What we focus a pipe and there's almost shut it. Timino can say, Bay, now watching Bay, Munini and Sani, almost shut a pipeline.
Yes, I mean,
pigging exercise.
Yes.
China kora me call tema.
Okay.
Na many media for. Jodi me invite asempa. Me na ya ko hwɛ ne
Sure.
Nti what you do is a meal na say okoto fango. You find liquid fuel. Nti President Mahama Daruma ya tore light crude oil 450,000 barrels.
Sisia.
Aba.
Okay.
Ya tore diesel and distillate fuel 40,000 metric tons.
Okay.
And ya tore HFO 20,000 metric tons. And to mean for you end of the picking period, yes, I order another 20,000. And yes,
well, the return of power generators is becoming the new norm in major parts of Kumasi, especially the central business district. Now, the Ashanti region for the past few weeks has been grappling with the intermittent power outages, leaving many businesses and residents scrambling for alternative sources of power. The situation has become dire as many businesses, including banks, restaurants and shops, have been forced to rely on gensets to keep the operations running. Nana Boakye Yiadom engaged traders who are complaining about the high cost of operating these generators amidst the intermittent power outages.
The Ashanti region is particularly hard hit by the recent power outages. The thriving streets of Kumasi, the regional capital, are now filled with a cacophony of generators, a stark reminder of the region's power woes.
For the past few weeks, major parts of the Ashanti region have been experiencing consistent or intermittent power cuts. And in the central business district, which is most affected, the traders have been forced to return to the use of generators. Today we took to the streets of the CBD to engage with traders who say that the return of these generators is a clear indication of doom so.
I have bought one generator and I have to get another one for my workplace. Times are hard.
By format, next 4 years. You have last week, this week at Waso. To me, make us say, Dumsana Nebano, Mesalam Huno. Because it's a generator store, as I rise it. It's true, that's all come young. A more timetable, and we are better, you know, do Sunday. I
believe this is the return of Dumso because the use of generators are on the rise. They should just give us a timetable, and that is better.
And no Tuesday, if you are and you know, say, and only better than say, Tembia, a team of your home on a fear and no jale. Just say, no more say.
At the CBD, the frequent power cuts have disrupted production, leading to losses for businesses and affecting the livelihoods of thousands of people. The power outages have also taken a toll on residents who are forced to endure the heat.
The same do so na come. So na me now for name me call for ntimase. And when you home no. Ensida o. Say benya net fala to say na enya na we kufu at the time. Ensida. Obi pension adwunu say dum so na home no.
This is the same Dumso situation we experienced in the past. We all have to buy generators in our homes.
We are starting to generators on fie. Enti me anya say ye twemra kakra ebe kikanema bomama enema be fala na ne be fa emfa ba Dumso ndi aba ba enim say NDC time o ma.
Dumso has returned, but I believe John Mahama can solve it. The rising cost of fuel has made it challenging for people to afford the expenses of running these generators. ECG PRO for Ashanti West, Benjamin Enchi, says measures have been put in place to avert the outages.
As we speak, individuals who need power to run their businesses are relying on just which is an extra cost, and want to apologize to them, but I want to assure them that we are working assiduously to fix the problem, but we also need their help. So as we speak, yes, we intend to restore power to our cherished customers within the Doom businesses before close of day today. And we also want to apologize to them for this act as well.
He, however, complained about the consistent theft on ECG's electrical installations. According to him, these theft cases are contributing to the outages being experienced.
We have always made it a point to supply them with quality and stable power supply. But since yesterday, you realize that some of our customers within the Doom Business Center are facing an outage as a result of this action by these unknown individuals. The stolen equipment have affected the 500 kVA transformer, and in view of that, we were unable to supply power supply to our cherished customers. What we are doing as a company is we are trying to put measures in place and rectify the issue to restore power supply to our cherished customers.
The Ashanti region is not the only part of the country affected by the power outages. However, the situation is particularly dire due to the region's high demand for power. For Joy News, Nana Bwachidankwe, Kumasi.
Well, away from the power issue, some members of Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana in the Greater Accra region have defied a directive to protest the appointment of the new births and deaths registrar. Joy News checks in some of the ministries indicate that only national service personnel and workers who work directly with ministers were at post at the time of our visit. My colleague Stephen Mensah visited some of these centers and filed this report.
Government Staff Association of Ghana announced last week of its intended strike action in protest of the appointment of a new birth and death registrar. They argued that Mr. Samuel Aduboche is a politically exposed individual. Joy News checks in some of the ministries indicate that work has been left in the hands of the national service personnel and workers who work directly with ministers. Some of the workers we spoke to at the various ministries indicate that they want their leadership to focus on addressing their tier 3 payment and payment structure allowances.
Appointment of an individual who does not really have any direct impact or effect on their condition of service is irrelevant to them. And then secondly, their main agitating to this is the fact that they have pending issues before leadership, like their new salary structure, which leadership is not channeling its energy towards that.
It's an appointment, and though it will go a long way to help us, okay, but right now as we are talking, these things wouldn't affect us anyway, but it has to start from somewhere. So we are thinking about the new salary structure and our condition of service, and secondly, the tier 3 that they are deducting. It should be an optional thing. If you feel like going into it, you can go and register so that they start deducting from source.
Well, applicants seeking services from the Births and Deaths Registry in the Ashanti region were turned away as workers joined a nationwide industrial action by the Civil and Local Government Staff Association, CLOGSAG. Now, CLOGSAG is protesting the appointment of Samuel Aduboche as Registrar of the Births and Deaths Registry. Emmanuel Bright Kweku report offices of members of the association in the regional capital, Kumasi, remained closed as many clients were left stranded at the entrance of these offices.
A client desperately knocking at the door into the reception of the Births and Deaths Registry in Kumasi. After several attempts, workers at the office only returned to inform him about the ongoing strike.
Well, actually, this is my first time of coming to the Birth and Death Registry. Well, and I came here actually to do my birth certificate. Yeah, so, and quite unfortunate, I didn't meet up with anyone here. So I decided going back home.
He's not alone. Many clients who trooped to the office to seek various services were turned away.
This woman just came here to seek services from the Birth and Death Registry here in the Ashanti region. And as you can see here, she's trying to go back from wherever she came from because she was unsuccessful to access services from this particular registry. And a lot more of these clients have been stranded for the entire day. Some need these certificates for their personal use. Others tell me they need it for their work. Others also for their traveling documents. It's critical for their traveling outside of the country.
Well, I really need it within this week or ending of this month.
Why?
Because I want to do my traveling process. It will really affect me badly.
Explain to me.
Okay, because I'm going there. I have so many things to do, both working and studying.
My excavator operator. My chances been about
I need a certificate for a job opportunity.
But because of birth cert, I didn't know. I was a local shop, but I buy a
Officers are the local ministry's enclave in the region, including the Controller and Accountant General's Department, although opened, refuse to serve clients. Members of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association Ghana, CLOCSAG, are protesting the appointment of Samuel Adom Bochwe as Registrar of the Birth and Death Registry. Although the government has justified the appointment of Mr. Bochwe, the association argues he is a politically exposed person to occupy the position.
And so for the many residents or even clients who came here to the registry, the Birth and Death Registry here in the Ashanti region, they have been stranded and they are calling on the government and even other stakeholders to ensure that they resolve this impasse. From here in the Ashanti region for Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bransquin.
Well, Upper West Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Damien Punguyiri, has expressed concern over the steep rise in the abuse and misuse of antimicrobials in the region and the country at large. He noted that research has proven that drug-induced nephrotoxicity accounts for up to 60% of acute kidney injury cases in hospitalized patients and is associated with increased morbidity and mortality in both adults and children. Dr. Punguyiri made this call at the annual review meeting of the Upper West Regional Hospital. Joy News' Upper West Regional correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from WA.
The annual review meeting by the Upper West Regional Hospital was held on the theme Rationalizing Antimicrobial Utilization in the Upper West Regional Hospital, the role of antimicrobial stewardship. Upper West Regional Director of Health Services Dr. Damien Punguyiri asserted that considering the steep rise and abuse and misuse of antimicrobial in the region and the country at large, he saw the team chosen as apt and timeous.
Research has proven that drug-induced nephrotoxicity accounts for up to 60% of cases of acute kidney injury in hospitalized patients and is associated with increased morbidity and mortality in both adult and children. And the abuse of antibiotics are one of the most common causes of drug-induced nephrotoxicity. Besides, the harmful effects of the abuse of antibiotics on male potency and virility is also well documented. From the foregoing, it is therefore fair to aver that the abuse of antimicrobial has become the new pandemic with its very serious deleterious effects on human health, such as the increase in antimicrobial resistance and a decline in efficacy and potency of drugs.
Medical Director of the Upper West Regional Hospital, Dr. Robert Amesie, threw further light on the annual review meeting.
The last month of last year, the National Health Insurance absorbed dialysis as one of the packages that they are going to pay for. We need to find out the astronomical increase in the uptake of dialysis services and how we are going to cope with that. We also are reviewing the challenges we had, and one of the major challenges that we have all witnessed has to do with power fluctuation that is putting at risk our equipment. The other one has to also do with inadequate staffing and staff attrition. And then, because we don't have adequate accommodation at the hospital, we have resorted to renting outside the hospital for our critical staff at a very exorbitant rate.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
Well, from WA, let's take you to Takoradi, where the Takoradi Air Force Base, a strategic military installation in the western region, is facing a growing challenge with land encroachment. Out of over 600 acres allocated by the central government, approximately 88 acres have been taken over by unauthorized settlers, raising concerns about the base's operational effectiveness and security. Air Commodore Kwabena Kisiedu Manukuri Atiemo, commander of the Takoradi Air Force Base, has expressed alarm over the steady loss of land to private developers and squatters. There is more in the following report.
The commander of the Air Force Base Takoradi, Air Commodore Kobna Kisiedu Mankroatiemu, briefed Western Regional Minister Joseph Nelson, who also chairs the Regional Security Council, on the base operations, core mandates and challenges. The major concern raised by Air Commodore Atiemu is the silent approach of land encroachments on military territory, which poses a significant challenge. He emphasized the need for urgent attention to address this issue and appealed to Joseph Nelson to collaborate with stakeholders to put an end to land grappling within the military enclave.
Encroachment is one of our big problems, and it is basically down to land administration issues and our failure over the years to secure cadastral for the entire space. I am currently pushing very hard, continuing the efforts of the previous base commander to do that for this section, which represents about 88 acres of 618 acres that we should be able to control.
In response, the Western Regional Minister Joseph Nelson assured the command of his support in vigorously protecting the lands, particularly those within primary operation enclaves.
Me as Regional Minister and the RCC, there's something we can do. I believe there's something we can do. I think that largely your parent ministry, with the Ministry of Defense, has a huge responsibility in that regard. We will play the complementary role of helping you resolve some of these challenges.
The Minister, Joseph Nelson, engaged with commanders, staff and key stakeholders of the Air Force Base, fostering collaboration and understanding. He toured the facility, gaining insight into the base operation and infrastructure. Additionally, he inspected ongoing projects, demonstrating his interest in the command's development and progress. For Joy News, Inasalia Kwanza, Western Region.
Well, up next is Business Update. So let's start the business update on the AM News with what is happening in the currency market. Now, Labour economist Professor William Barboating has stated that the 10% increase in the minimum wage for public sector workers should serve as a guide for private sector workers to also negotiate for better conditions of service. He argues that the increase in the minimum wage bill and base pay is backed by law, hence the need for every employer to comply. He's been speaking to Joy Business.
So I said the national daily minimum wage is determined by the National Tripartite Committee made up of organized labor, employers, association, and government. And it is always anchored on the rate of inflation. So it serves as a guide for salary negotiation when it comes to the private sector as well as the public sector, particularly those on the single spine. The impact depends on where you are coming from. So, for instance, I said it is anchored on inflation. And, of course, since, last year, I think we ended inflation around at 23%. It means that what was given to labor last year was not up to 23%, so they need to be restored. So if we have inflation within the 20, and then we have minimum wage increased by 10%, it means that it is an attempt to at least cushion workers against a decline in their purchasing power by inflation. Of course, for workers, I think it's going to cushion them a bit, but it's also going to increase the wage bill on the part of government, so that when the minimum wage goes up like this, it also affects the base pay on the single spine. So the base pay will go up and it will cascade upwards across board. That means that wage bill will also go up, not necessarily by 10%, it could be more, it could be less. So on the part of the private sector, when workers are going to negotiate with their employers based on their conditions of service, this 10% increase also serves as a guide, so that at least workers would know that the minimum wage has gone up, and therefore at least get something closer to that, it will also push in us. And this is meant to ensure that workers are able to, float above the minimum inflation, so that their purchasing power will not decline so much.
Well, away from that, President of the Oil Palm Development Association of Ghana, Samuel Avala, says the oil palm industry seriously needs government's intervention to enhance the efficiency of small-scale producers. Speaking earlier on the marketplace, he noted that production could be doubled with the right intervention and provision of equipment to boost small-scale production to reduce reliance on imports.
We have a deficit, so yes, we need oil to come and add to what we have in the meantime. But it should not come under ETLS, waiving off duty and appearing to be cheaper. That is what the external factor looks like. But internally, we have a huge chunk of our production coming from the outgrowers, smallholders. They lack efficiency, so their yields are around 6 tons of fruit bunches per hectare, but they can easily get to 12 tons, doubling that production. The artisanal millers who use substandard machines are having oil extraction rates in the neighborhood of 12% to bunch. This can also go to be very modest, 16%. That 16% oil extraction, and that's about 30% increase in oil. And that alone will increase their oil production from the current 80,000 tons per annum by another 27 to 30,000. And if the about 100,000 hectares of the smallholder plantations that need to be replanted are also replanted, we will move from the 6 tons per hectare to 12 tons per hectare, which is double. And that alone will give us probably another 200,000 tons of palm oil. With these two major interventions, we will be self-sufficient. And a further 100,000 to be developed will make us a net importer with about another 100,000 tons of palm oil that we can export into the Africa Continental Free Trade Area opportunities.
Well, let's wrap up the business update with what is happening on the commodities market. And that's how we wrap up the AM news here on the AM show. Up next is the news review, where we'll be joined by Kwame Nkrumah Botio, his General Secretary of the CPP, Andrew Appiah Dankwa, spokesperson of Movement for Change, and Professor Isaac Boadi, his Dean, Accounting and Finance, UPSA. Do stay with us. We'll be right back after these. Welcome back to the AM show. This is the news review segment where we review what the papers are reporting this morning. But before we go into what the papers are reporting, let me introduce to you my guest for the show. Kwame Nkrumah Botio is the General Secretary of the CPP. He's here. And Mr. Dankwa is also the spokesperson for the Movement of Change, the Butterfly Army. The Yellow Army. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
We are
fine.
Okay. You know, as we do usually, I'll start with you, Dankwa. You have an issue you want to pour out before we go into what the papers are reporting.
Yes, so let me wish your lovely viewers a good morning. Always a pleasure to be in your company. And my own brother and mate, a good morning. I think on Tuesday and Wednesday, we saw a report that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama taxing his ministers to declare the assets by 31st March.
Yeah.
And that was after he himself declared his assets. And as much as it was a step in the right direction concerning the negative impact of corruption on democratic efforts, for me, I think, as much as I want to commend him, I think it's just a small step in fulfilling one of the fundamental principles that underpins our Constitution, the principles of probity and accountability. And to say that beyond they declaring, there's a need for us to also ask for proper declaration. That brown envelope declaration, in my view, isn't enough. It's not enough. And the fact that it takes them close to 6 months, because over the years, what I've noticed is that they seek for extension. Most of them don't even declare that this time, if really we are committed to resetting the country, it means that we are resetting our attitude towards the principles that underpins this democratic effort. And so to that end, we should have proper declaration, and also there must be a call for frequent and periodic lifestyle audit. As in that habit of people earning X amount and leaving 3X doesn't help anybody. Also, we must also alter our culture and make it much more transparent. This issue of we not knowing, especially how much public officers earn and then they living lifestyles that's, or people going to public office and suddenly they are multi-millionaires. It doesn't do anything, doesn't help our democracy. So yes, I want to commend the president, but I'll add there's a small step in the fight against corruption, and that as much as he is seeking to reset, I think that reset effort will not be completed unless we reset our values and our principles to align entirely with the principles of probity and accountability.
Interesting. Okay.
My take is along similar lines, especially where my brother said things should be done properly and not just this brown envelope declaration. And in light of that, one of the government appointees has done something which I think is it's a step in the right direction. Because if you want things to be done properly, it's even everywhere. If you look at 1 Corinthians 14:40, he said, let all things be done decently and in order. Felix Gyamfi, the head of the National Service Authority, he's been granted various interviews. And he has said over and over again that we should allow the state institutions to investigate the allegations. Because if we keep on throwing figures out there, assuming somebody is guilty, they will be able to regroup and find a way to wriggle out. At the same time, too, if the people are innocent, then you end up tarnishing their names forever. He even mentioned how, from their investigations, it is 80,000 names, and they are still looking into it. But the figures going around says 220,000 names. A lot of names are being bandied about, and as a high-ranking member of the NDC himself, I think that he doesn't seem to be towing the line of what business as usual or politics as usual, that they did it to us, so we must do it to them. That vindictiveness is missing, and I would like to praise him. I would like to praise him, and just as my brother said, things should be done properly. Investigation should be done properly. Let's not be accusing people, because there are all kinds of accusations going around against both NDC and NPP officials. Let's remember that these people have families, they have children in school, all kinds of things are said against them. Last week I said it was a day of love, so let's do everything with love. And today I think we should try and do everything in order. We have our structures. Let's allow the structures to work.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go into the papers. I have the Daily Graphic. I have the Ghanaian Publisher. What do you have?
I have the News Center and the Daily Banner.
Okay, all right.
I have the Custodian.
The Custodian, okay. Let's start with the Daily Graphic then. Now, on the front page of the Daily Graphic, it says, President Mahama delivers State of the Nation address next week. So we'll be expecting that he will deliver what the state is like next week. 10% pay rise for government workers. Minimum wage now 19 cedis, 97 pesos. Ghana Health Service Director Health Facility to set up PWD's desk. Kwame Asumenin leads Ghana Association of Banks, and Payaza launches SME funding initiative. Now, of course, everyone is interested in the minimum wage, So he says the government has, and organized labor yesterday agreed on a new base pay of 10% across the board for workers in the public sector. The development means that all public sector workers on the single spine salary structure will have an increment in their basic salaries by 10% from January to December this year. In addition, the National Tripartite Committee also set the national daily minimum wage at 19 cedis, 97 pesos. This implies that any Ghanaian earning salary or allowance, including house helps, nannies, and guards, must not be paid less than that in a day, or 559 cedis, 16 pesos a month, using 28 days. Well, I don't know what you make of it. Dankwa, obviously good news, or?
No good news.
No good news. Okay.
No good news.
All right. 10% increase.
No good news.
Okay.
No good news because it was inflation now.
Above, I think it's around 23.
And so if inflation is 23% and you increase somebody's salary less than 50%, up to more less than 50% of what the inflation rate is, then you are putting them in a situation where they will struggle. You understand? But you see, it brings a bigger issue. See, this job issue is an issue that we need to tackle critically. Yeah, because I think it's an opportunity for us to expand the conversation beyond the 10% increase, which in my view is just not adequate.
Okay.
As in, is just not adequate. But then there's a bigger conversation about jobs. I think, was it last week where we spoke about the slotism issue?
Yeah, the protocol.
The protocol and the slots. You see, and I think before the show began, we were slight conversation about the SME thing. So we need to understand that when you want to create jobs, you want to give your citizens the chance of living well, you understand? Then what history has taught us that the key is in aiding your SMEs. Because what is happening in this country is, because there's practically no deliberate support for small, medium scale enterprises. Businesses can't grow, and so they have practically no jobs. So even if they have jobs, the businesses are not in the position, haven't been able to grow enough to be able to pay the few jobs they create well. And so there's so much pressure on the public sector jobs.
Yeah.
So much pressure there.
Yeah.
You get a picture. Now, because the SMEs also are not growing, that means that government's revenue will be hampered. Okay. Because government makes revenue from the businesses. So if you do not deliberately support your businesses, then how are you going to get your revenue? And so and that's why even though inflation is, so that's just a small bit of the issue, because it's a whole huge discussion that needs to be had in my view. So then there are no jobs because government is not helping the SMEs. So there's so much pressure on the public, and yet because government is unable to also generate revenue, even where there's inflation is about 23%, and if you calculate the average inflation over the past year, it won't be even 23%, because you must recall that inflation got to about 50-something%. So if you are calculating the average, it will hover around 30-something%, and you increase the public sector salaries by 10%. That's a huge problem.
So what actually do you want government to do?
I think, you see, and we do not have to reinvent the wheel. Even mighty, I said here and I'll say it again, even almighty America, after the Second World War, where the economies had been tanked for close to 15 years, they revived the economy by their then President Dwight Eisenhower introducing what we call the Small Business Act, which created the small business agencies. So today, if you go to the USA, they have small business agencies in every district, and their focus is, one, to give institutional support in terms of capacity, and two, so that at least the companies will have the proper structures and proper corporate governance system, and two, to also create a system where the government uses its power of fiscal policy and monetary policy to make access to financing easy for the SMEs, because that's the way it goes. Indeed, in fact, when you also go to Europe, the Marshall Plan, if you go and study the Marshall Plan, which essentially revived a continent that had been plagued in war and had been destroyed, ravaged by war for about 6 years. And when you add the Great Depression, it's a period of about 15 years. But when you go into the Marshall Plan, you see the focus of the plan was how do we aid deliberately, and the word here is deliberately, aid the small, medium-scale enterprises to grow, because that's how you grow your economy. Because government is dependent on their revenues through taxation, and so you must deliberately grow them. Then you cannot be assured of your revenue. Then beyond your revenue, then they will also create more jobs. So do not be enough pressure on what's called the public sector jobs. And Ghana here is the country for a very long time has been on autopilot. There's no deliberate effort to help the small and medium scale enterprises. So they're just there. So because you haven't aided them, they are not in the position to generate enough revenue for themselves so that you can make it legitimate what's called a claim on their taxes. They're unable to create jobs. So what happens is there's always pressure on government. And that's the reason why over the past few years, the MPs even went during their campaign on the back of slots. I'll give you slots. And I'll give you slots because they have not created the environment, deliberately created the environment where jobs can legitimately be created. And we need a massive reset in that thinking. Aid the SMEs, deliberately aid the SMEs. Use your power of fiscal policy and monetary policy to aid the SMEs. Then you get the jobs, you get the revenue, and the government and all of us will be about 10% where there's inflation of 20%. What have we done?
Interesting. But quite an interesting perspective, Dan questions there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you share with him. I will let you touch on your thought, but he gave the example of the America and the Europes.
Yeah.
But in a country, Ghana, where we are divided or we are polarized along political lines, how can we ensure that we also do have such a master plan like he talks about, where the focus won't be on whether this business is owned by someone belonging to my party or not? How do we cure that in order to help every business in Ghana to thrive? Because when they thrive, we create jobs, and the jobs would also then impact on government's revenue.
Yeah, it's a matter of focus. It's a matter of focus. You know, over the past week, even listening to the news, you realize that we are all focused on this polarization. Our primary focus in this country is let's go after them. Let's go after these people. When we came to power, they did this. When we came to... Those things are important, but they should be secondary. Let the institutions work in the background. Let them do the investigation. But the government itself, its primary focus is to assist the indigents, not to jump into the trenches and go after this person, go after that person. We have the prosecutorial agencies, we have the courts. Leave them to do their work. But the focus is so much on politics and tarnishing this party or that party, tarnishing this person or that person. So we forget about the core mandate of lifting the people, providing for the SMEs. And that has brought us to a situation where we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because what is happening now is that we are gradually going back into that tree, as they say, wait we're coming. It really hurts me to say this, but the government hit the ground running. But from the airwaves this week, it is more of, let's go after them. Yes, go after whoever has looted. But what about the SMEs? What are you doing for them? The voice of progress, the voice of what we are doing to help the ordinary man should be louder than the voice of who we are going after. Even though going after people is important, because the money that is retrieved from corruption can be used to do a lot of things. But the money that can be made from helping these SMEs can be used to do even more. We are between a rock and a hard place. 559 Ghana cedis is woefully inadequate. How much is transportation? Even if, assuming you even live next door to your workplace.
But it used to be less, so.
It used to be less, yes. It's terrible. Assuming you even live next door to your workplace, so you don't pay anything on transportation. 559 Ghana cedis, that's 20 cedis. Can 20 cedis feed you and your family for the day? Can 20 and then rent, buying soap, buying prepaid. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
No, it's ridiculous. It breaks my heart. Yeah. It totally, this is nothing. But then you can have genuine employers who want to assist. But these employers, some cannot even cough up this 559 Ghana cedis. So what you're going to have is, you're still going to have people being paid less than this. You're going to have people being paid less than this. People doing 001, 010, 100, people eating once a day. This is terrible. This is terrible. And we must reset our focus. We must focus on going forward. You listen to other countries. It's all about, oh, we've made this medical breakthrough. Oh, we are giving aid to this country. We are doing this. We've made this breakthrough in education, this, that. But ours is different. I don't think we've always been like this. Because if you go right down to our traditional societies, it's not about accusing people willy-nilly. There's a lot of respect. I don't know how we came to this situation, but our politics has become something else. There's not, I don't think there's a real focus to move, to make the progress of the country the primary focus of I would say, the political class. Or I wouldn't single out any party. The primary focus is to strengthen the parties themselves, not to strengthen the country. We need to reset. And I know His Excellency, so far, he has been a moderate voice. His speech the day he was sworn in, it gave me a lot of hope. And I really hope and pray that the State of the Nation address is a chance for him to reset our focus when it comes to what to do about what is happening in this country. Let's discuss ideas. Let's discuss funding. If you look at the United States and other countries, it is the private individuals who have been assisted by the state. The Walmarts, the Amazons, if you go to the UK, the Sainsbury's, the Tesco's and all that. But
and even in Russia, we've had a story of the oligarchs. And then also
the oligarchs.
And then also China. Massive support for
Yes. But over here, everybody is clamoring to to work directly for the state. You see, the state should be more of a supervisor and less of an employer. Then we will move forward.
Yeah. Interesting. Let me welcome Prof. Onto the show. Prof, welcome.
Welcome.
Great to have you. I don't know, maybe we'll also give you a chance if you have any issue you want to speak about first before I bring you into what we are discussing from the Daily Graphic.
On the increment.
But usually we do give opportunity for you to say maybe you have an issue on your mind you want to pour.
Good morning
and then,
to
yeah.
Good morning. Praise God. It's been a while. Been away for some time. That's fine. I think it's on the same 10% pay rise. And what has caused this as a basis is inflation. Persistent increase in the general price of goods and services without production. If you have production, we won't talk about this. It's a key thing. We are talking about 10%, and I appreciated the analysis of my good brother. The workers' union, I mean, this is being advocated by a sector of our economy, the public sector wage, not the private. If there's an increment, remember, the private sector also will start demanding. That will be a big issue for the country. 10%, good or bad. And I heard on the other platform about the labor union, former Labour Union President Austin Game. He attributed to the fact that we should consider production and the fact that we should put performance management system in place. Why are you increasing the wages of people? On what basis? Is it because of production? Is it because they have performed well? Do we have system to check the performance of these staffs in the offices? Today we are talking about this. Remember, there have been a lot of issues in our country. Pre-2010, we had fragmented salary structure over the period. Then when it entered in 2010, we had a single spine. And that increase was about 20 to 30% wages for staff, for people. Then somewhere in 2010, 2015, annual increments also came. So we had a standard over the period. Now between 10, 15, 20%, we're hovering around that area. If you decide to increase my salary, and we'll have further discussion later on about the relationship between wage increments and inflation. One is a bi-directional relationship. One can cause the other. Inflation can cause a wage increment, or wage increment can also cause inflation.
Okay. More money to spend.
So we are careful which one are we focusing on. Later we'll have because we don't have time to go into the nitty-gritties, the details of this. It's difficult. 10%. What is the inflation rate today? In 20-something.
Yeah. 23.5.
And if you want to have real inflation, deduct all this from the figure. Tell the actual figure that we have. 10%, woefully inadequate.
Hey.
Woefully inadequate. And I don't know what we can do as a country. But you see, I wish the 24-hour economy should be able to provide jobs, create other jobs for these individuals so that they are not, they won't go through this hell. Because if you increase, in a few weeks to come, the private sector will start demanding for an increase.
Yeah.
So my thinking is that government must have different avenues to create jobs or give the enable environment for people to create jobs. SME, very good avenue. And I'm sure 24-hour economy is able to do this magic. The people in our country.
Yeah.
And last thing on this is that At what point did this issue get to that the president had to intervene? You make the minister powerless, for me. Because I don't know whether they threatened demonstration as a last resort. I don't know what happened. But if we keep doing this over time, everybody wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
They will sideline the president.
They will sideline the minister.
The minister, sorry. So we need to empower them to negotiate. The skills should be there. When they want to do choboy, let's go there. The minister must be the one to calm matters and ensure that, I mean, we negotiate all the issues fairly. The president should be the last person stepping.
Yeah, but he was the last.
But at what point?
When it came to a head.
Well, at that point, I'm not sure they had exhausted all the avenues.
Okay.
So we should get.
But doesn't that action by the president also inspire hope that this is a president who wouldn't mind him being the president, but would be there, to join you when issues heat up and we have to have a solution. We have to get a solution to issues.
I don't have a problem, but I was trying to find out at what point you intervene.
Okay.
We should empower our ministers to have that negotiation skills. We start with workers. That's my point.
Okay. All right. Grateful to you, Prof, there for joining us. Professor Isaac Boadi is Dean, Accounting and Finance, UPSA. This is still the news review segment. We are on the daily graphic. Now the Ghana Health Service has directed all facilities under the service to provide a desk at the outpatient department to assist persons with disability with immediate effect. The officers at the desk are to assist the persons, the PWDs from the OPD till they leave the facility. The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Professor Samuel Kaba Akoriye, said this when he engaged the National Council for Persons with Disability and executives of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations in Accra last Wednesday. Both let me start with you. Coming too late in the day? Or?
Well, I would say that it's better late than never. Better late than never, and it's a step in the right direction. Our PWDs, brothers and sisters, they have a lot to offer to the nation. If you look at other jurisdictions, they do a lot. I think there was even one prominent scientist, I've forgotten his name. Who passed away about
some years ago.
This physicist, this expert, about 2 years ago. And I think it's a step in the right direction, and more, even more should be done for them, because the disadvantages that they encounter, we do not encounter. And as one prominent PWD said a few years ago, it takes only a second for you also to become a PWD. It can happen through an accident or anything like that. I'm not saying to happen to anybody. But putting things in place for the PWDs is also, securing your own safety one day or that of your children or relatives. So having a special desk for them, it's in order. Because if you look at the hospitals and clinics around, I think almost all of them now have ramps for wheelchairs and all that. If you go to a lot of the churches, they have ramps for wheelchairs and all that. But then when it comes to the hospital beds, the facilities in the consulting rooms and all that, do we have adequate facilities for these PWDs? And does it cover, there are all kinds of PWDs. There are the ones that, we have one unique one, which is those who are both deaf and blind. There are people like that. Do we have people in the hospitals who can speak to them? Because there's a way to speak to them. But a lot of these people, they are cared for at home. You have the medical staff having to come on, because when they go to the hospital, they can't get the care that they need. So it's really a step in the right direction. It is.
So, Danko, from where he said, it means that we need to train the people. How do we make sure that this is effectively being implemented?
So, there again, it comes to the deliberateness of it. And government be reminded always of their obligations. I think when the president takes his oath, I think the last but one oath he takes, knowing his oath is 3. Yeah, the last one, he says he's going to dedicate himself to the well-being of all manner of persons. Of persons. No, that all manner of persons, usually when we'll look at it from the tribalism, and all manner of persons also includes people with disability. So that as a people, we must carry everybody along, and we must create a system, a situation where the talent of everybody benefits the country. Yes, well, as stand on all forces with what my brother here said, but beyond the hospitals, because it should be a starting point in our secondary schools. How has provisions been made for their comfort in every place? You understand? So I think there must be a deliberate policy. There must be deliberate regulations, rules, requirements. You understand? So where people want permits to construct buildings and undertake businesses, there must be, I think they are, but they must strictly enforce them to ensure that nobody is left behind in a pursuit or in a quest to create a society where we are dedicated to all manner of people, to ensure that every dream, as much as possible, every dream is fulfilled.
All right. Prof, you want to have a bite on this before we move on to the other subject?
The idea is to set up a DEX.
Yes,
for them.
PWD. So when they walk into the hospital, the OPD, someone would have to be with them till they leave eventually.
Well, any attempt to support people with disability, in the end of the day, I will support. My good friend ended on a good note that anybody, any one of us, the minute will be in the same situation.
Yeah.
So it's time for us to support them. But there are times we say some of these things by words, actions, and we don't have a plan for these people. And if we check from the manifestos that we have read so far, all of them, all the political candidates, the aspirants, made provisions for these people. When they come to power, implementation is a problem. Just so our nose here, around a circle and all that, you see people, blind people, chasing cars, asking for support. That stage, what happened to these individuals? What are we doing? The question I want to ask, do we have a budget line for these individuals? Helping me at the hospital, fine. When I leave the hospital, what happens to me? Alone. Where's the budget line? I've not seen. I'm yet to see that in this coming budget. Let's see. Allocations for these people. Then we can say that, we mean what we are saying.
Okay. Now let's move on to the page 16 of the Daily Graphic, an important subject that bothers on all of us. Our forest reserves under threat. Let's protect them. Land and Natural Resources Minister to citizens. So it's a call on all of us. He says, large tracts of forest reserve in the country have come under serious attack by illegal miners. So far, an estimated area of over 5,000 hectares, equivalent to 7,500 standard football pitches, has already been devastated. In all, 44 of the 288 forest reserves in the country are gone. The Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Ama Kofi Boa, disclosed this in Parliament last Wednesday. He mentioned some areas most affected by the illegal mining activities as Bekwai and Nkawie in the Ashanti region, Takwa and Dabuase in the Western region, and Bibiani, Enchi, and Joaboso in the Western North region. Quote, over 9 out of the 44 forest reserves have completely been taken over by these illegal mining thugs with impunity, and the Forestry Commission no longer has access to these reserves, Mr. Boa said. For his solution, says, the minister outlined short and medium to long-term measures to address the situation. Quote, in the short term, we want to clear all water bodies from illegal mining activities through the use of river guards under our Blue Water Initiative. We will also engage stakeholders at all levels to, among other things, strengthen our regulatory and law enforcement regime and get the buy-in of stakeholders on measures being pursued, he added. Prof, let me start with you. Do you think it's been too much talk and less action, or less effective action? What exactly do we need to do?
I understand the difficulties in everyone's mind in terms of providing solution to this problem. Same issue, this land issue, forest reserves issues, have sent a lot of government to opposition. Others have capitalized on the same issue and made gains out of that. We're in Ghana. Several educations, several attempts by previous and current administrations have not yielded any results. And I don't know when we can have solution to this problem. We have heard the short term. He professed short term.
Yeah.
He mentioned long and short term. I didn't hear anything about the long term.
Okay, so he says for the, in the short term. For the short-term measure, the minister said he had inaugurated a working committee of experts to undertake a review of the mining sector and licensing regime and recommend immediate radical reforms to sanitize illegal mining activities within forest reserves and water bodies. Long-term. So the minister said the fight against illegal mining was not a battle for one individual but collective. So the country had a total land, blah, 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 blah. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing the long term here.
I'm not happy with the short term measures. Okay. And that's all most of the government, that's what they give to us. Because stakeholders' engagement, for me, it's important. But how effective has it been over the years? Remember the previous administration, Operation Galamstop. You had a lot. Different names and nomenclatures were given. Operation Galamstop, and there was another one, Shoot and Kill.
What was it? No, there wasn't any. There was Galamstop. Vanguard, yeah? Operation Vanguard.
Vanguard came.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Operation Halt.
Even to a point that our former president had to put his presence online.
Yeah.
Still. So, my brother, I don't have a solution to this problem. I may not be an expert in that area. But for me, stakeholder engagement is paramount. And those our ministers should give us proper long-term measures. You can do the stakeholder engagement for a month. People don't even go to the site to do it. Afterwards, we'll leave it. We'll leave the forest.
Stakeholder
and
engagement.
They go back again. Look at the players involved. We have chiefs, investors, we have some government appointees, and a lot of, I'm not speaking anyhow, we have a lot of records to show that some ministers sometimes are involved. Who do you want to speak to? Today we are in Accra. We think that we will not have effect of this. Remember, there are times because of job and other related activities, you are moved to those regions and you have to drink water. You have to eat food. The northern region, the western region, the eastern region. I'm sure it's only Volta that we don't do mining.
Yeah, we haven't heard of any water being devastated by illegal mining.
I was in the northern region. A lot of the areas, they do mining. So even if we want to do, I'm sure our law enforcement engine must ensure that we do responsible mining. If we can't stop, then we should find a better way to allow them to operate, operate comfortably.
Dankwa, what do you make of these solutions the minister is suggesting?
It's laughable.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't think that river guards can help protect them?
No, river guards can help and all, but listen, when it comes to mining, when it comes to exploration of our natural resources, when it comes to the need to preserve our environment, I think the laws are clear. Enforce the law. Just enforce the law. One, because you see the problem, the destruction of our forests, especially the forest reserves, is because, see, when God created this world, he also regulated how the world ought to go. And he created a world that is self-regulatory, like how our human bodies are. You understand? And so there are a number of cycles. You have the carbon cycle, you have the water cycle, and all. And then one of the critical elements of nature that sustains the carbon cycle, one, to maintain the heat levels or to maintain heat at a rate where we will survive. Because if the temperatures go above a certain level, we won't survive. One. Now, we also know that when you have too much carbon, so there must be a balance between your carbon and oxygen in the system. So when you have too much carbon, we all know that there's also a certain coat is formed and heat is retained. It can even impact your climate.
Yeah.
You understand? Indeed, as we speak right now, when you go to the US and when you analyze this sustainable climatic change conference, the North-South agreements, it's about, as in they are highly industrialized and all. But the reason why right now they are prepared to pay money in terms of what we call carbon credit, you understand? It's because when we destroy forests here, you are talking about Accra, it even impacts people outside of this continent.
Yeah.
You understand? So because of the threat and the impact the destruction of our forests can have on us, it is disappointing that successive governments won't just use the powers we've granted them to enforce the law.
Which powers?
Oh, you have executive powers. You have executive powers. Indeed, our Constitution, Article 257, creates in the president a trust.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, under Ghana law, you can't even go and harvest lumber, timber, without license. You know, in Ghana, so all the sawmills companies, like how you need a license to harvest, you also need a license to Indeed, even when there are people in the business of private plantations, even the owners of private plantations, they are not allowed to harvest their trees anyhow because of the dire consequences of destroying a forest. So we created a system and said, listen, we'll reserve the forests. That for these forests, you are not even allowed to go there.
So what do you expect government to do that hasn't done?
Enforcement. That's all. Because in the government in architecture, you understand, we by law reserved the forest. We by law says that, listen, land, because when you define land, it's not just what you see. Land goes all the way to all your interests, to hell, and all the way up. But we say, even if my friend Bosu has land and he finds any mineral in his natural resources, that mineral and natural resources is for the state. There is a reason. Yeah, understand? And we've created the Minerals Commission, granted you powers. Because when people do galamsey, it's stealing. When somebody goes and harvests a tree without license, it's stealing. Enforce the law. Enforce the law. It's your duty as government to create a system that will make your monitoring and enforcement easier. That's why we've granted them powers. So it's not about everyday stakeholder engagement, because the people involved in this sin, this evil to our country, are the politicians themselves. So there's no will to stop them, because it's they themselves. Did you not hear a story right after what's called His Excellency John Mahama was became president, that the NDC Galamseys have gone to sack the MPP Galamseys and they've taken over. Yeah, no, did you?
I remember the community mining in Tagba it happened.
Yeah,
in Aboso it happened. Yeah.
So they sacked and they took over. Yeah. No. We can't sit and allow the politicians, people who are supposed to be the avant-gardes, the custodians of our democracy, to put us in a situation where all of our lives will be at risk. Now, another thing that also disappoints me is, you see, at the bottom of it is the economy. I can tell you, if the government finds a way of encouraging more people to venture into private plantations and educates people, I know they always take carbon credit. It stays at the forestry. If they find a way of educating, people don't know, of educating people that, listen, when you plant trees and you, the forestry company, they set up and make people know a carbon credit regulatory regime. and encourage, like I was talking about deliberately enforcing people, empowering people to venture into private tree plantation, not the sham of tree planting they do. They go and plant orange trees. How much carbon can orange sequestrate? When you know, there's research that tells that you have trees like Odum, Makori, that have the ability to sequestrate so much carbon. Are you aware that right now, 1 ton in the carbon credit market, 1 ton of carbon sequestrated is worth almost around $80. 1 ton. And there's some trees that can sequestrate 1 ton. So if there's a whole economy and there's a whole business in tree plantation, where if governments really want to deal with this problem, you can kill 1,000 birds with 1 stone.
So individuals can even plant it and get those credits
then
into their pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
If you go to California, there's a whole carbon credit market there. There are carbon credit brokers. You understand? So that if the bottom line of it is people feel that, listen, there's so much money to be made from the good, I can tell you that there's much more money to be made from efficient carbon credit, and it's even renewable. Unlike gold, when you take gold, they won't come back again. The tree will come back again because it is renewable. So it's not about we doing the same strategy, stakeholder engagement. We say stakeholder engagement, nothing comes out of it. Okay. Let us be deliberate about, first of all, enforce the law, arrest people, and 2, open up and educate and empower people to focus on the private tree plantations. Okay. And find a way of making them make an economy of it by finding a way of getting them have access to the carbon credits market. And you can deal with this issue.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Boto, I'll just have to give you like 2 minutes.
Oh, sure. I think in the short term, the minister's proposal may work, because I remember in the early 2000s when we were rounding up our issues with poaching during the Kufuor era, there were some strides made in that sense where forest guards were used against the poaching problem that we had. And there was even a scenario where one forest guard was captured by the poachers and sawed in half. I mean, there are a lot of issues there. But in the end, where is poaching now? We don't have that problem anymore. So using these river guards and all those things, in the short term, it can help. We dealt with our poachers in the early 2000s. But what do we have today? That time was about preserving our wildlife resources, habitat, and all that. But now we have Galamsey taking over. And we feel that, well, the Galamsey may not necessarily be capturing any animals or anything like that. But we also forget that we still have our Wildlife Resources Management Act, 2023, Act 1115. And this talks about protected areas, management of protected areas. We have many forest reserves. If you go to the Upper West, for example, there's a large portion which is protected by the state. So you cannot farm or do any mining activity there. We need to enforce these things. It's a lack of enforcement. It's a lack of prosecution of those found guilty. I'm glad you mentioned the Western North. I remember I was taking a trip to Seshirioso once, and unfortunately, I got lost and ended up. Yes. My Google Map went off at a point due to network. Okay. I found myself in the middle of a dense forest, and I'm in a path through trees. And then I came across this huge timber truck, and I saw that people saw me. They scattered. You see, so we still have these problems with illegal logging. Yeah. It is not only the Galamsey. We still have illegal logging going on. We still have Galamsey going on. We really, really need to do something about prosecuting those found guilty of these activities. And as my brother said, sometimes you have people in high places being involved. Therefore, it should be a partnership between the state and the local authorities. Because a lot of those on the local areas, they are more interested in preserving
their
areas. They should work hand in hand, because a country cannot develop if it decimates its forests. If you look at the top 7 forested countries, they are all highly developed countries. The most forested country in the world is Russia. Russia has the highest forest cover. Russia still manages to explore for oil. It still manages to do agric. So that means that we can prosper without having to destroy. We just have to regulate and be fair to each other. But it's become a free-for-all. Everybody is grabbing. So let me grab my own. You understand me? You have Brazil, Canada, USA. You'll be surprised. USA is the 4th most forested country. But when we talk about pollution, we talk about USA, we talk about China. China is the 5th. So these people may be polluting, but they are preserving our forests.
In fact, I think it's the fantastic way people do it. Because some of the large-scale mining companies are also operating in what you would term as forest.
Exactly.
But you won't see them destroying the cover. I've been to some companies I don't want to mention, but when you fly the drone, you see, white cover. But when you go to them, they are under that space working. So maybe it's the training that we could give to these. But these people are not also small-scale miners. These are illegal ones. But maybe we could train the small-scale miners that you are the ones who probably are on the ground. So if you do it this way, these guys can learn from you to know that, oh, we can get the gold in this forest without necessarily destroying the forest. But anyway, let's see how that...
Or revegetation. A lot of the big mining companies, they have a whole department whose job is just to revegetate.
So I did a documentary for one of them, and it was on how they plant palm on the mined areas. And I tell you what, these guys have huge tract of palm. And when they do it, they give it to the local people. So the company itself would cultivate the area and will hand it per acre to farmers in the community, and then for them to start earning from it. It's beautiful if you fly the drone and see how they've planted the palm trees.
So I mean, that is true. There should be some education for these miners to know that it can be done in a sustainable way. Don't just leave them on their own. I think it's a good idea.
Galamsey is killing us. I hope that people can see it that way and see how we can do responsible mining. It can be done, because even when you go outside, I'm told they even mine under riverbeds, but they don't destroy the river. How do they do it that we are not able to do it? Maybe we have to do technology transfer through capacity building, so that our people can still do these things without it. Because some of the stories we've told, if you look at how they've destroyed the forest, it's really beat your imagination how we can do that to ourselves just because we want to get some money now, But let's go to the Ghanaian publisher. It says, rededicate to democracy, and that's Akufo-Addo telling African leaders. Bawumia jabs Mahama over public sector dismissals. Mahama's cabinet has space for only 2 women. Minority condemns action against Akwatia MP, and national minimum wage up by 10%. I want to do the So former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has urged African leaders to rededicate themselves to democracy and constitutional rule, warning against the resurgence of military takeovers on the continent. He expressed concern over the return of military coups in West Africa, stating that the region had previously reached a consensus on multi-party democracy as the best governance model. Speaking at the launch of General Ibrahim Babangida's autobiography, A Journey in Service in Abuja, Nigeria, Akufo-Addo praised the former Nigerian leader for his candid reflections on governance, military rule, and the complexities of leadership. Well, Boto, kickstart this for us. How can African leaders rededicate themselves to democracy? Is it that African leaders are trying to tinker with democracy? Is that why we're seeing some of these takeovers? Is that the reason?
Well, these takeovers, it is one of the reasons, tinkering with democracy. And sometimes it is not creating the necessary atmosphere to prevent these coups happening. I was listening to a news item recently, one of the foreign stations, and it said that the terror activities in Burkina Faso risked entering into Ghana. And they even said that it has already entered into Ghana. People have already been recruited. So it's a matter of creating the necessary environment so that people will be satisfied enough not to engage in these activities. And these activities are very serious. And I know that sometimes tinkering with the constitution in order to extend your stay and all that. But if you look at the Ghanaian circumstances, it has not always been about tinkering with the constitution. Sometimes these coups are actually the politicians themselves using the military. Okay. Or sometimes you have other state actors. I mean, in barely 3 days' time, we'll be celebrating Ghana's Day of Shame, which is, I think, is the 59th anniversary or so of our first coup d'etat, which brought us to where we are today. I mean, as a country, with the CPP and Nkrumah, we're pressing forward with our agenda. And then we now know that the CIA worked through certain actors to bring us where we are, together with our own indigents. So we need to create the necessary environment, especially with the political class, where you have the sort of system where there's a certain, I would say, a certain inclusivity. Let us all realize that we are in this together, and nobody who is encouraging a coup none of them is doing it for the general good of the country, unless in certain circumstances. Our constitution, for example, says that if someone threatens to overthrow the constitution or overthrows the constitution, then you are entitled to also, to defend the constitution. So it goes beyond the politicians themselves tinkering with the constitution. Okay. You have other state actors, as we had in 1966. You also have the general situation on the ground. If the boys are hungry, then they become fodder for these people. Yeah.
Danko, if you look at the recent one in Burkina Faso, I think it's Mali and Niger,
and Chad is Central African Republic.
Is it about the politicians, the economy, or someone feeling that a certain upper hand is oppressing the will of the people?
Listen, you see, we need to be plain here.
Okay.
Are we practicing democracy? Because you see, democracy is not going to have an elections.
But it is what?
What is democracy? It's power by the people.
Yeah.
It's government by the people. And then the most popular definition of democracy is government of the people, government by the people, government for the people. Now, in all sincerity, can we say beyond the government being of the people, because all the people we voting, is it government by the people? And is the government for the people? Is it for our benefit? In Africa.
That's why when for example, we can speak about in the Ghana context. That's why when
I'm talking about the Ghana context. But
when the government is not performing and we're voting out, is that not we telling you that?
No, but accountability, you see, we voting him out, we having the ability to vote him out. It's just a third of what democracy ought to be. Because let me give you a typical example. Contrary to what people say, Europe largely became democratic after 1945. Europe, when you take away Britain and to a small extent France. By 1939, Germany was under a dictatorship. Italy, Mussolini was a dictatorship. France, General Franco.
Mussolini is just recent.
That's what I'm saying, that by 1939, so after 45, was after 45, where Europe, the principles, the values of liberal democracy permeated Europe. And it was just around the same time where democracy also started in Africa. Because we started Ghana, because we can say that by 1951, if you are talking about democracy, you understand? So how is it that they have managed to sustain their own? You see, to sustain democracy, then then the power must be truly by the people. And you can only do that when we deliberately and intentionally have a decentralized system. Because when you go to what's called Europe, power is largely truly decentralized at the borough level, at the city level, and so in fact they do everything at the local level. So most of the time, their presidents, they only deal with foreign affairs. They only deal with foreign affairs. But in Ghana, and I want to use Ghana because we are the poster boy of democracy in Africa. Yes. In Ghana, were you not ashamed? Well, I was ashamed when our vice president last went to Abu Boshi to go and launch a toilet. You see, so beyond we voting, can you say the power is truly by the people? Are we involved in decision making truly? And when I say it's not about our parliamentarians going there, proper democracy, you have power is so decentralized that when and that's last week I said here that real governance is at the local level. That's where real governance happens. Do we have proper governance at the local level? And can you also say that this democracy has been for our benefit? Because let's be honest, let's be candid and frank. Because you see, and also when you want to sustain democracy, then you as the leader, you must deliberately build that right political culture that will sustain democracy. And that right political culture is a culture that will tolerate diverse views. Well, we are talking about multi-party democracy. And one of the abiding qualities or values of a multi-party democracy is the value of pluralism. The understanding that my brother Kwame Nkrumah will not entirely share my view, but I will respect his views. And lastly, a democracy that empowers the people to hold their leaders truly accountable. Would you say that our leaders are truly accountable? Well, if they are truly accountable, then some of the things we have said here, there's number two, there's vindictiveness, he did this to me. No. So I hear what the president said, the former president said. When he had the 8 years, he didn't do, in my view, he didn't do much to entrench democracy in terms of its values. Let us collectively, as a people, understand that that's the best system which can guarantee for us the rule of law and do everything to ensure that we have true democracy that works in the interest of the people.
All right. Prof, I beg to give you just 2 minutes here so we can wrap up our time as fast.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. I think former president said this when he visited, he went to Nigeria, the launch of a book.
Yes.
It was on that platform that he said democracy remains the best option for Africa. And it's true. But let me change the emphasis. We're looking at the negative part of democracy. I mean, this Africa, what we have gone through. We also don't forget, we have had successes as well. Other countries, although we've gone through a lot of issues, we've handed over power peacefully in Ghana, Botswana, South Africa, some other countries. So when we are looking at this democracy, let's also praise other countries that have also chopped. It's a fair that we do this. Yeah. But my last point on this is that there are some systems we have that those systems don't also support democracy.
Yeah.
And these are the things that we should be concerned about.
What systems?
Well, economic situations.
Yeah.
If someone wants to cause a coup, time, what will trigger? I don't get food, inflation, cost of living, going high. What must a person do? We don't subscribe. We don't want this to happen. But the system should be corrected so that we don't get ourselves into this. But remember, we've gone through a lot. Regular election, we've done this in Africa, multi-party democracy, peaceful election, power transfer. We've done this in Africa. So let's look at the positive side of it, and then we can make a good case for this.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. But if you can read to me the headline on your paper, you do same, and then we can go. Prof,
well,
let me start from you. The headline on the front page of your paper. Yeah.
Create new jobs.
Create new jobs.
And stop sucking workers.
Okay.
That's a good headline.
That's the custodian, eh?
That's what he brought to me.
Okay, the custodian.
I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah, custodian.
So who said that?
Bawumia tells Muhammad.
Okay, all right. So that's it? The other ones? Okay,
Government
that's what interest. That's of interest.
I think that's
fine. Yes, Dankwa.
Okay, it has similar, but I'll go for that headline. So, no charity in foreign relations.
Okay.
Akufo-Addo.
Okay.
And Osustu kicks against assembly nominee, recommends to others.
Okay. All right.
That's from the news center.
Okay. Yes. Go to.
No more coups, which is good news. Bawumia slams Mahama over dismissal of innocent employees. Impriso MP calls for an end to politically motivated dismissals. And finally, NSA payroll saga. Mustafa Yusuf Asibe entry, rubbish allegations.
Okay, so that's Kwame Nkrumah Boatio. He is General Secretary of the first President of the Republic's Party, CPP. We also had Andrew Appiah Dankwa, he's spokesperson for the Yellow Army Movement for Change, and Professor Isaac Body is Dean, Accounting and Finance, UPSA. Well, this has been the news review. We'll take a break here. When we return, we'll bring you the AM Sports because my colleague, Muftau Nabila, is on the standby to bring you that. But we'll move on and bring you the big stories as well. But just before we go, select a solar system from our Vera Solar packages ranging from 30,000 cedis to 99,000 cedis. All our solar systems come with lithium-ion batteries. Get a solar water heater, a solar home system, a solar power station, or a solar generator ranging from 1,000 watts to 20,000 watts. We also sell reverse osmosis machines for water treatment. You can Google SolarMate Ghana to find us on both Facebook or on Instagram as well. Contact SolarMate Ghana on 0508-320470. SolarMate Ghana is located at Adjoining Ghana, East Legon. SolarMate, we go everywhere. Well, we'll take a break here. We'll be back with more. Please do stay with us.
Wait. You know we are your natural allies, and we've worked together for many years. One thing that is a cardinal principle for us is to tell the truth at all times. We all knew the economy was in crisis, but some of the things I'm discovering myself, it's been a criminal handling of our economy. And Ghana is a crime scene, actually, because how a government can have been so reckless, I cannot understand. But we're faced with a reality, and our options are very few. We can behave like the ostrich and hide our heads in the sand and let the economy crash. But then what effect would it have on Ghanaian households and everybody? And so I've told him, I said, cut expenditure as much as you like. Even we ourselves in Office of Government Machinery cut as much of our budget as you like, because we all must make those sacrifices. A certain distrust of the political class has arisen, because it's like when everybody else is tightening their belts, the political class is loosening its belts. But I want to assure you that we're all going to tighten our belts, and there will be no wasteful expenditure. It is said that we create and share. And so let's start cooking the meal now so that we can share when we have created. But right now, the meal is not only insufficient, the cooking pot is even leaking. And so I'll just appeal to you that let's temper our demands for this year. And once we get out of the woods, we've set good targets to bring inflation down so that the cost of everything will come down. We've set targets to grow the economy, to make things better. And when the cake is baked and is bigger, we'll share bigger. We are proposing an independent emoluments committee that would set the incomes for everybody from the president right down to the ordinary laborer. We're prepared to walk this journey with you, but I just appeal to you that let's reach agreement on this one so that we use this year as the year of correction. And then after we've corrected, we'll see how the economy continues to go. Once the economy moves in the direction that we are all hoping for, we all, if we have an independent emoluments committee, maybe if you suggest 35%, I'll support you because it will affect my pay too.
Joseph Ajay is a factory worker. Every day, he puts hours of hard work, but his salary barely covers his survival. 3 meals a day? That's a luxury he can't afford. For Joseph, lunch is the only proper meal he gets. His go-to choice? Beans and gari. It's cheap, filling, and keeps him going.
Thank you.
He comes to this popular joint in Kokomemle every afternoon, but even that is becoming too expensive.
Money, it can't help me because every day I eat 40 cedi, 50 cedi. That money there can't help me at all because it's small. It's small, yeah. A day is 30 cedi, 40 cedi price, okay for everybody. Yeah, because the 19 point it's not good though. I can't do anything for me at all because I think 30 cedi or 40 cedi is okay for everybody.
A 10% wage increase was supposed to bring relief, but for Joseph, it barely covers the cost of one meal, let alone his transport, rent, or any other daily expenses. Across town, at another food joint, Benjamin Naughty shares his frustration.
I don't think 19 or 20 cities would do something. Even what I eat in the afternoon will cost me, let me see, about 50 cedis. So giving me 19 cedis for a day, just look at it. Even giving your child, maybe, let me see, 10 cedis, what can he buy with that 20 cedis or 10 cedis? So 19 cedis, I don't think is good.
Benjamin's frustration is shared by many workers who feel the wage increase is out of touch with the reality of rising prices. Richard Adegu, another worker, spends 3 times the minimum wage daily, and he's not happy about it.
As a worker, to work and then be paying 90 cedi, 90 pesos a day. Why are we slaves? Are we still slaves or what? How can you cater for yourself and then your family? You can't do anything. You can't move forward.
For Richard, the financial squeeze is real. The numbers simply don't add up. But not everyone is dissatisfied. Richard Kasim, for one, believes the government is making an effort.
Last year, the previous government increased it by 23%, right? So if less than 2 months, this government is able to increase by 10%, at least it will take part of my cost I'll be making for the month, which is enough for me. It has taken part of my burdens off. It's going to take off e-levy. It's going to take off betting tax. Where is he going to get the money to be able to increase above the 10%? You have to know that he's squeezing from one end to another to make sure he will cushion us for us to feel okay in this country.
A 10% increase, some call it a step in the right direction. Others say it's nowhere near enough. But what do you think? Does 19 cedis, 97 pesos a day make life better? Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy News, Accra.
Also, government in a move to boost workers' remuneration approved 10% base pay increase for organized labor, plus an increase in minimum wage to 19 cedis, 97 pesos. But is this sexy for an IMF economy, as some people have labeled it? We'll take a look at concerns about the tendency of this move to trigger inflation and its ramifications for the ailing economy. Here on the big stories. Let's bring in our lead data analyst here at Joy News, Isaac Ofieje, to help us break down the numbers here for us. But we also have with us on this particular discussion, Lord Mensah, who is he's a finance person, a professor of finance at the University of Ghana. And then in studio with me is the Dean of Accounting and Finance at UPSA, Professor Isaac Bodi. So we have two professors on the show, plus Isaac Kofi Adjei. Isaac, let me start with you, Kofi. Break down the numbers for us in terms of what the government has announced and what it means for workers.
Right, Kojo. So this is usually a negotiation between government and other parties. And if you look at the 10% increment, last year when government announced 23% plus 2% at the last half of the year, we had a lot of noise about the increment. But this year things have actually been on the quiet. That means that possibly Labour actually got what they wanted, or even if they did not get, they were able to reach an equilibrium with government that they might feel it was satisfactory, especially looking at the picture that the president painted to them. But if we are looking at the numbers this morning, then what this 10% means is that it is actually illegal for any employer to pay their worker anything below 598 cedis, 95 pesos for a work done for a month. So if the minimum wage for a month should be 598 cedis, 95 pesos. If you compare this to what it used to be, let's say a year ago, that means that the figure has gone up by more than, I think, 100 cedis. So if you look at the next slide, that talks about the comparison between what the minimum monthly wage used to be a year ago versus what it used to be now, or per what the government has announced in the next slide. That will do the comparison for us to know how this has actually gone up. So now we are looking at an increment from 544 cedis to now 598 cedis, 95 pesos. Any worker who works for a month should not be paid anything less than this. So if you are an employer, you pay somebody 400 cedis for a month, 500 cedis for a month. I think that you should start revising this way. This does not also mean that, employers should start increasing salaries, or because there are already people who earn above the minimum wage. But definitely, when you have these things, in full swing, it doesn't just affect salaries, but rather it also affects the pension contributions that especially government does for some of its public sector workers. If you look at the wage bill, for instance, the compensation of employees for government this year, it's not just about salaries, but also about some other remuneration contribution that government does on behalf of its workers. Now, on the screens now is the how minimum wage has been, looking at it from 2012 to 2025. And you have in red there the current minimum wage, which will take effect soon. But if you look at the next slide, that talks about the magnitude of the increment. It tells you that it was just last year that we saw the outlier. Last year was actually staggered into two, where you had a 23%, I think, first half of the year, and then you also had somewhere 25% at the latter parts of the year. And so if you compare that to what we've had previously, definitely last year was an outlier. The average usually has been around 10 to 11%. And so you will see that this does not fall outside the domain, or does not fall outside the bracket that we usually know. Possibly that's the reason why we didn't see a lot of noise, or we didn't hear a lot of noise from organized labor or from the workers, possibly. We understand that last year, for instance, they went to the negotiation table, tabling some 60% increment in minimum wage or base pay, but government decided that they could pay 23% and 25% at the last part of the year. We don't know the official demand from labor this year, but definitely looking at the picture that the president painted, they seem to have bought into that claim by the president and have accepted the 10% increment both in the base pay and also in the minimum wage, with the assurance that if things begin to get better, governments will definitely come in and then also meet them halfway. But beyond this increment, what is the the kind of fiscal burden that this could pose to government? Because already we know we do not have the 2025 budget in yet, but you can get a sense from the projections that the IMF did in their third review. And that is where we are picking our data from, looking at the projected compensation of employee bill for government this year. That's hovering around 73 billion Ghana cedis and forms about 35% of the total projected revenue and grants. If you compare it to tax revenue, you can see that, I mean, what government pays to its workers definitely takes more than 50% of our tax revenue.
Okay.
And if you add interest payments and all of that, debt servicing obligation for this year projected around 142 billion Ghana cedis. It really means that the government finds itself in a very tight corner.
Okay.
But with the assurance of labor, I think that possibly governments could find its way through this, maybe until next year when they come out with maybe another lucrative, increment.
Isaac, I'm grateful to you for joining us here. Now, Isaac Ofieje is our lead data analyst here at Joy News. But let me bring you in studio and bring in Professor Isaac Body, Dean Accounting and Finance, UPSA. Joining us on Zoom is Professor Lord Mensah, Professor of Finance at the University of Ghana Business School. Prof. Body, I mean, if you look at the 2024, Kofi said it was an outlier. Could it be because we're coming from a period where inflation was almost, was it 53 or so in the preceding year?
Yes, I appreciated the presentation of the researcher, giving us a view of the trend over the period. Before I comment on that, in Ghana, public sector wage increases have been shaped by four other conditions. Economic challenges will push people to demand for higher wages. If you also look at the government policies, can also cause people to demand for increment in wages. Structural changes are also part of the thing that can cause people to do that. And if you look at this over the period, you were asking a very good question of 2024, when we saw a jump to about 23 or 23. I said it was good that we make reference to what can cause people to demand for, and I mentioned economic situation. So when situation where we have a higher and issues with the economy, and we think that price of items are going up, definitely people also will demand for. So we could talk about what happened in the Ukraine issues. We talk about the COVID, we're coming back from COVID and all that. We had a turbulent period over the time. So that could also speak to the fact that, yes, we demanded for. It was an outlier, if you saw the diagram. But I'm happy that over the period, we've been moving around between 10 to 11 on average. And I was surprised when the labor union took the 10%, because you can tell that it's woefully inadequate. But they accepted. Maybe they have seen the trend and they realize that, well, this is the best the government can do.
The president also told them that things are not good at the moment. When things become better, I mean, they can all share in the pie.
It was assuring. And as a president, I'm sure that's the best way to speak to people, to tone down and wait for a better day to demand for some other remuneration. But let's also not forget this, that it's also important to mention, over the period, we can have a trend over the period. Remember the pre-2010, when we had a fragmented salary structure over the period. We're talking about in excess of about 20 to 30%. So in 2010, then we had introduction of single spine, and that was around that period. Then we also had 2012 to 2015. We had an annual adjustment.
The single spine was signed into effect 2009 when Kufuor was leaving.
But I think implementation took place, I'm sure, 2010.
Okay, yes.
That was when. Then in 2016 and 2020, you know, we had austerity and IMF constraint, and we had issues on that. Then 2021, 2023 was driven by inflation. And we're looking at a figure, I think it was around 20 to 30% or so. But remember, there was a COLA issue.
Yeah.
Cost of living allowance came.
Yes.
And that the figure was around 15%, just giving a background to where we've come from over the period. And then we had 2023, there was a negotiation, and 30% was given. But they had to stagger it. There was 115% taking effect in 2023, and then 2024 over the period. So we've come far. But let's compare inflation rate and that of what we have been given. Anytime we are looking at an increment or workers are demanding for, a condition will necessitate that. If the cost of living is too high, people obviously will demand for. So if you ask for my, which I will come back again, whether 10% is good or not, at this stage, individual can check. And I will be able to make a very good assessment on this figure.
Okay. So the economic conditions play a role in what workers will be demanding in terms of increases in their wage. Let me bring in Professor Lord Mensah. Prof, some other people have described this as excessive because this is an economy that is not too strong. Will you agree with those people that this 10% increment is excessive for the economy, looking at where we are now?
Well, good morning to our viewers and good morning to my colleague at the studio. I can tell you that, yes, indeed, the 10%, I mean, looking at the public purse and what is happening, I would say it is something mere, but it's better than nothing. If you look at, the happenings on the grounds, I always tell myself that what will cause labor to call for demand for, an increase in salary. If you look at the sentiment around inflation, it's one of the key detectors of, labor call for increase in salaries. I mean, if labor expect inflation to go up, obviously sitting by the table, I can tell you that they will always ask for an increase. Now, if you trace back in the years, I will not use, looking at the examples that are being given in the studio, I will not use 2024 as, a benchmark in determining, what do we call it? Economic numbers. When it
why so?
Yeah, because it's an election year. And we know election years, economic numbers are always in outlying space. And because the government can go all out, to put out something to convince, labor. But then also, let's not forget about the goodwill that the current administration is enjoying. And also, going to the negotiation table and the president himself sitting right there. I mean, sometimes it has a way of, causing kind of psychological, demand, down. Let me put it that way, because, you least expect the president to be sitting at the middle of, such negotiations. It shows a sign of openness. And for me, labor couldn't ask for more because, the president was sitting right there and, more or less opening up the economy to them.
Yeah.
And like I always say, economic management goes with being open and how information moves, okay? Let's not downplay the psychical and psychological dictate, of some of these things. It's very, very important because, if you're going into negotiations and then you have a powerful person, sitting there, sometimes it's one way or the other, and not just being powerful, communicating, the economic situation, and then also promising you that, going forward, if things get better, the usual, situation where we used to have that kind of asymmetry in tightening of belt, where the politician would tell you that let's tighten our belt, and then they will be having a belt loosen on the other end. I mean, will be no more. I mean, it gives that kind of confidence. And I believe that is what, brought about that kind of level of, wage increase that we are seeing now.
Okay.
So, and which is also not away from the normal, the usual trend, because if you look at the past years, with the exception of, last year and then the year before, clearly you will see, that the wage increase has always been hovering around, 10, 11, thereabout. So from where I sit, this is not out of the norm. Again, what, brought about this kind of level of increase is one, the expectations in inflation that is likely to go down, which the labor knows. And then again, looking at the pass-through effect of some of the taxes that government has promised to remove them, indirect taxes, let me put it that way. Government has promised to remove them, which feeds into prices. Okay, so labor knowing very well that receiving their salary at the end of the day, going forward, if those taxes are scrapped and then expectations and inflation, comes down, their, disposable income is going to have, something to buy, or maybe it's going to be powerful in terms of purchases. So that is why, that level of 10%, I'm not surprised at it.
Okay. All right. But the labor consultant, Austin Gami, has described the recent approval of 10% wage increase for public sector workers as excessive, warning that it could exacerbate inflationary pressures. Now, he says even a 1% adjustment in public sector wage could push the economy into a higher inflationary bracket, ultimately affecting everyone, including the beneficiaries of the wage increase.
I think we have to be careful. We have to be careful how we throw in, inflation in relation to, wage increase. We are talking about expected inflation here, not past inflation. If expected inflation has a tendency of going down, then obviously increasing wage, I don't think it will create much problem. And then also, let's not forget that, liquidity has been a problem. Cash has been dried up in the economy for some time now. And I can tell you, there's no single penny that will drop in people's pocket that will not have anything to do. The inflation that Ghana has been battling with, I always say that it has been, the upper part of the economy's inflation. That is between Bank of Ghana and the banks, which, the Bank of Ghana thinks, okay, fine, they're pumping more money into the economy. That will be sitting at the bank level. But trust me, through economic activities within the ordinary level, you don't really see that kind of inflation happening, because you see a lot of empty pockets, a lot of people walking around without jobs. Do you think those walking around without jobs, when they get money into their pocket, they'll be pricing things anyhow for us to say that more money will be chasing few goods? No, it's not as we see. So from where I sit, I don't think this increment will cause any inflation, because the economy has been operating below capacity. The measure of inflation that Bank of Ghana has been chasing has been, between them and then the banks. And so from where I sit, I don't think at that ordinary level we're going to have, inflation.
Workers in the public sector, the numbers are huge. Are you debunking that there could be an effect when they get more money and chasing some fewer goods? Or is your point that there will be too many goods such that the monies won't be a lot of money chasing fewer goods?
You see, what is happening is that when you talk about inflation, the definition from the textbooks will tell you that, look, when you have, more money chasing few goods, there's a tendency that prices will go up. That is what, happens. But then I can tell you, in the Ghanaian economy, inflation at the lower level is very, very low. Let's try to, categorize inflation at the upper level of the economy and then the lower level. If you talk about, you saw your video going around, those who were eating, down on the street, telling you that, they don't have money. The economy is dried up. And so would that increment will be meaningless to them? Do you think such a person, getting an increment of about, let's say, 50%, who will be chasing, ice water at a price of 5 cedi? I don't think so. So at that lower level, inflation is, very, very low. But then if you look at, the top level, I mean, I always say that Bank of Ghana has been chasing inflation at the upper echelon of the economy, which, I mean, for me, I think that's not an economy. It's not an inclusive economy. It's an economy where you have, I mean, some people getting free money here and there. We think those free monies that they are getting, as a result of that, they'll be pricing things anyhow. And that is exactly what is, we see in the housing market and all those. You see some prices of houses that are so exorbitant that the ordinary person on the street cannot even afford, how to buy ice water. So from where I sit, I don't think, this increment will cause any problem.
All right.
Not at all.
Okay. Let me come to Professor Body. Prof, so if you look at where we are today in terms of, the president even says, our economy isn't strong at all. I mean, I'm trying to paraphrase from what he said there. But like Austin Game said, 10% is quite on the high side. Can the economy, sustain this 10% rise we are giving to public sector workers?
Yes, from the video that I watched when the president sat in a meeting with the labor union, was reassuring for a president to sit in a meeting of such sort to discuss matters of wages and all that. Reassuring. But the question I asked on that day, for how long can the president be sitting in such meetings, giving assurance to people? Because demand for wage increment will never stop. So in every year, are we going to have presidents sitting in such meetings to assure people?
I'm sure this is a one-off.
Well, we are yet to be told. What will be the role of that minister in charge? They made these powers. So I wish our ministers would take this battle and have a very good negotiation skills to deal with such matters. Let's put that one on the side. The other thing that you asked, Austin Game's position, he looked at it in two areas.
Yeah.
One, can we put performance management system in place to determine? And two, he said, any increment, even in 1%, will throw the economy to jail, to cause inflation. We should also understand that there's a bi-directional relationship between wage increments and inflation.
Okay.
Wage increment can cause inflation. And inflation can also cause wage increment.
But like Prof. Mensah explains there, the 10% is not that huge to cause inflation because people won't be chasing goods with the little that they will be getting on their monies.
Well, if I take the first one, how can a wage increment cause inflation? When people, salaries or wages are increased, individual will have a higher income, and then therefore they will demand for more product. If those things that they're demanding for are not there, and that is what it can cause inflation.
Okay.
And when inflation, we said it can also cause a wage increment. Yes. When goods and services are high, and people are not having the means to do that, they will demand for a higher wage. So which one has caused the other? That's what we need to find out. If indeed it's the inflation that we are going through that has caused people to demand for, then 10%, is it enough? Or it's not enough? We're here to see. But for me, I think it should have gone out a bit.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, at what point did our president know that things are difficult, things are hard?
Having assumed the reins and getting exposed to the realities.
Oh, really?
Yeah. From 7th January, that's when he assumed the reins of power. He's been going through the books.
Well, he's been very honest, and I'm sure any government should be very honest when they see things are not going on the way they assume. They come out clearly and tell the nation. I mean, you eat your humble pie, it's fine. But my advice is that sometimes when we are behind the scene, be careful what we say, because it's likely going to change when we take over. And this is what we are seeing.
All right. But I mean, I wanted us to look at where the economy is. You are calling for more, that the increase should have been more. But we're under an IMF program. We know our financial constraint. Could we have managed more? And can the economy even sustain the 10%?
Well, I think if you look at the fiscal responsibility or fiscal impact, anytime you want to touch a salary, base salary or base pay, it will have effects on the other items. Because when you do that, you also will have to increase other components as well that will come with it. And will have impact on the budget. And have impact on our economy. How much is enough is yet to be determined. 10%. They called for, what was the percentage? I think we were looking for more than 10. So, but this morning, your data analyst did a very good job by giving us an average figure over the period, between 10 to 11. I'm not asking for 20% or 30%. But then, I think that 15 or 17, as a country, we can absorb.
17%?
Or 15%, we can absorb. Yeah, we have seen this before. But my challenge is that we should know as a country our position, financial responsibilities, what we have to do. But we should not use some of these things on political platform, because when you assume power, it's a different thing. And I'm happy that, well, the labor union, the negotiators have taken this in good faith, and it leaves the matter to rest. We've given, you demanded for, of course, workers' union will not go and demand for 5.2%. Do they demand for a higher figure? And it's up to the government to negotiate. That's why we often sit on table and discuss this. Plus or minus. We come out with an agreement and we say, well, we can pay 10% or 5%. For me, judging from where we stand as a country, the cost of living, rent, transportation, electricity, unless, of course, we are going to reduce other taxes.
Which they promised to do.
Good. So if that is a part, that's a plan, then we can accept this for now. If that is also an increase, workers will come back again. And let's look at the other effects on the private sector. They also will demand for their employers. So they also increase their own.
Private sector usually sometimes that's more than the daily minimum wage.
Yeah, but we don't hear.
Yeah, obviously when it comes up,
we don't hear.
That's for it. Let me go back to Professor Lord Mensah. Prof, there have been arguments that we need to tie wage increases to productivity. At what point can we say that it's the right time for us to begin such a system where your productivity will determine how much you're paid in the public sector?
Yeah, I mean, as we speak now, it is like that. I mean,
in the public sector?
Yes, of course. I mean, you look at the kind of, you see, when you talk about productivity, the measurability sometimes in most of the public sector works sometimes will be difficult. I mean, we're looking at the number of hours the person spends at work. The person can go to work and sit there for hours without, producing even a single paper. At the end of the day, he has spent the hours there. And we are using the number of hours spent at work to determine, the output of the person. Again, we are not looking at brick and mortar, kind of work where you will say, okay, fine, when you come to work, you have to lay, blocks of about, 10 layers before we can determine that this is your output. So it needs some systems and which we need some kind of investment in that. But then let me go back to tell you that workers normally demands pay increase at a certain level depending on the expectations in inflation. Again, government, having a president sitting at the midst of, salary negotiations, promising that when things get better, they can shift, the spine, You know, the single spine I'm talking about here. If you look at the single spine, okay, over the years, governments have been trying to avoid the increment in, you know, single spine because they think it will cost them more to do that. And if you have a president that has sat in negotiations to give assurance that when things get improved, you know, they may look at the entire single spine and see how, you know, they can move the spine, you know, to a level. All these years, most of the pay negotiations across the labor front has been on, you know, on allowances. And that is why usually when the minimum, what do we call it? The minimum wage goes up, it bounces into all the allowances. And I can tell you that because government has failed to negotiate on the spine, it is affecting pensions as well, because pensions are paid on basic salaries and therefore, not on allowances. And so you will see a typical worker in Ghana enjoying during his active, you know, years in service, but when he goes on pension, it becomes a problem. Difficult life, you know, to have. So from where I sit,
sorry, not cutting you, but when the increase is on the base pay, you say it doesn't affect the pensions?
When there's an increase on the base pay, it affects the pensions, but then the quantums of leap in increasing the base pay is not as much as compared to how inflation has been growing in the country. So, by so doing, obviously the pensioner suffers when he goes on pension. But then let me tell you that, yes, indeed, we have to differentiate between what we call, you know, expected inflation and realized inflation. If you're talking about past inflation, then obviously you will say that we may need, you know, more. We may need more increment because inflation has been hovering around, you know, 54. And then just yesterday or last 3 days, reading through the papers, inflation has reduced to 23.50%.
Yeah.
But then that means that you expect the wage, you know, minimum wage to be increased within the same neighborhood of, you know, 23.5%. But that is not the case. We are looking at expected inflation as a result of possible, you know, tax cuts that the government has promised. We know the pass-through effect of, you know, taxes, which is price increase at the ordinary level. Okay, so excuse me. The government has promised, you know, a tax cut, which the pass-through effect obviously is going to be, price stability. Then you don't expect that, you know, labor will demand, you know, more. So I think the 10% is quite okay. If you look at what is happening on the ground, what is expected to happen in the future.
Okay, all right then. So we all agree that there should be a system to measure productivity in the public sector, right?
Yeah. I think measuring performance has been a problem. Always. But there are systems.
Because like Prof said there, you don't know what will determine that if I come to work,
Yeah.
what will really measure what I do. You know, there should be that thing to tell me that if you come today and you provide a sheet, that then means that you've performed your role.
I agree with him. It's been like this over the years. And my question is, can't we do it as a country? Can't we have a proper way of measuring public service, that sector? If you leave it like this, successive governments will give reasons. It happened in the previous administration. We can't take any administration out. But elsewhere, they've done it. They're able to measure productivity or the performance of staff. In fact, we are now looking at whether the increment is right or how much is supposed to be given. We don't have any way of measuring. We've done it just on a gross, we've given a figure. And that's what we are debating. Is it high? Is it low? But you have something to measure on the performance of these individuals. Then we can have a better conversations on it. But we should also not forget that there's something called productivity gap, which must also be emphasized. if you have wage growth and that outpaces productivity growth, obviously business, they will ask for a higher wages. When there's a difference between the wage growth and productivity gains over the period, people will demand for instance, if you have 10%, now there's a 10% increment in wages. If we have productivity growth about 2%, then the labor cost per unit output will be about 8%. What it means is that we'll demand for a higher increment. 10% of wage growth against a 2% of productivity growth or so. We have a difference of 8%.
Okay.
And that will determine the labor cost per unit output over the period. People will demand for, just given a hypothetical figure. So we should focus on the productivity gap that we have. When there's a gap, there will be a demand for.
But isn't that in the KPIs we give to people we employ in the public sector? Or are we saying that we don't give KPIs to everybody we employ in the sector?
There's one thing given, and another thing ensuring that those things are done. Who monitors? We have M&Es attached to various organizations and government sectors. How often do they measure performance? And what are the, just my good friend said, Lord, what are the indicators? You can state those things on your contract, on your letter, employment letters, your KPIs. But who is there to monitor? The frequency of monitoring this. Is it monthly, quarterly, annually? So every year we sit on the table to discuss salary-related wages. We should also be able to provide performance of these organizations, these sectors. Labor unions must also provide that. When they're going to sit and negotiate for this, provide other data that will help in determining this. And it will be fun.
Performance-driven.
Yeah.
So is it advice to government that it's time government begins such a thing? And whose responsibility should it be? Just the minister or who else?
Well, who appoints? Who gives jobs? It must be someone who will employ you. So before you walk into my organization, I'll give you your contracts. In the letter, or the employment letter, I state the KPIs. When I state those things, they are not there. Look, I will monitor. I will ensure that you do it. Because why do we get a good result from the private sectors? Why do we do that? Because they are able to monitor regularly. They know that a task is given and you don't fulfill, you don't do this. Go to the telcos. You know the number of calls you pick in a day. Someone is listening to your calls. How effective you are. And we can give you letters. You are doing well. So the next time you are asking for increment, we have your record. We know what you have done. And that will not be a problem.
But if you're monitoring the person's call, you are intruding into the person's private space.
Oh, no, that's what they are. Oh, it's not all the time.
Okay.
We have, I don't know the name they have. Just to enhance.
You mean the office line?
The office line. I mean, they have the back office also. Just to make sure that the person they are put in charge to be picking calls and not is doing the right thing, not to monitor calls of other people. I mean, the way you communicate with the client, your ability to respond to the request and issues, your turnaround time. These are KPI they also. I'm just giving an example.
Okay. Professor Lord Mensah, the minimum daily wage is 19.97. That's above $1. Are we on the right path? Or should there be more?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask for more, there's always, a lookout for more. I mean, let me put it that way. But then at the end of the day, you also have to look at the economic output of whatever is being, pumped into the economy. You see, when you look at the budget of the public, right, you'll come to appreciate that salaries and compensations is one of the inputs, which is at the expenditure side. But then you have to ask yourself, what revenue are we generating from, this, salary input to determine, that increase. And we're talking about efficiency here because whatever increment we look out for, we may have to measure, how, it will follow up output. So at the end of the day, over the years, if it has turned up that revenue increase has not been as expected, because the same labor you are spending on are the same labor that we have to, use them to generate the necessary revenue through taxes and other, economic output. So effectively, if the economic output has not been growing as expected, then obviously you should expect that, you will not get as much as, it's supposed to be. Let's relate this to, the GDP growth that we had in the past, years, even though talking about in terms of measuring the GDP as a result of, revenue generation may not be as much as we need. The economy was growing around 4.3, thereabout percent.
Okay.
How do we, have, a salary increase that will go beyond, the economic growth? So generally, we have to look at it as a system that we are managing.
Okay.
All
right.
If you're managing a system, you have to look at the input and then look at the output, and that is a true indicator of efficiency. And so, if the output is not, that as it's supposed to be, we cannot see an increment that will correspond to those outputs. But like I said earlier, it has to do with the future.
Okay.
Once the expectations of the future looks good, every government will be ready to share what is on the table with its people. So obviously, this is what we should expect.
Grateful to you, Professor Lord Mensah. I'm grateful that you could join us. He is a professor of finance at the University of Ghana. In studio, Professor Isaac Body is Dean Accounting and Finance, UPSA. Prof, I would have to leave you because there's something you have to bounce. I'm grateful to you for joining us here on the show. But wherever you are, you can also join us with your comment on our social media platforms so that we can have this conversation together about our country, Ghana. But just ahead on the show, we are talking philanthropy. And there's someone who's done so much in terms of helping a community in the Ashanti region called Ebusua. Would let you in on what the people are doing. Apostle Waynette T. Jackson is here to share with us those incredible transformation that he and his organization are doing in the Ebusua community in the Ashanti region. You would want to stay for that wonderful conversation. We'll be back. Welcome back to the AM show here on the Joy News channel. Now, celebrating philanthropy, we are joined in the studio by Apostle Wayne T. Jackson, whose altruism has revolutionized the Abessia community in the Ashanti region. Apostle Wayne T. Jackson is the founder and president of the Impact Network, the only all-African American founded and operated national Christian television network, which started in 200,000 homes and has now grown to 80 million homes. That's a great jump there. He is also the senior pastor of Great Faith Ministries International, located in Detroit, Michigan, and we're lucky to have him in studio here. Apostle, good morning, and thanks so much for joining us here.
Thank you. Good morning. Back in Detroit, it's about 5 a.m.
Oh, so 5 a.m.
We try to catch up with
Okay, so we're almost about 4 hours ahead of you.
5.
Okay. It's 5 a.m. there.
Yes.
But it's almost 9 here. So yeah, we're about 4 hours. But great to have you here in Ghana. Ghana has been described as a gateway to Africa. We are home. When it comes to our hospitality, is second to none. How do you find Ghana? How has Ghana been treating you since you came here?
Oh my God. Hospitality been great. It's been my 4th visit in a matter of a year. So 4 times visiting, we have been here back and forth, and we have been treated so well.
Okay. You love what we are doing to you in Ghana.
Well, I wouldn't have came back.
What's your favorite local food?
My favorite
local dish in Ghana?
Well, it's the people.
Ah.
The people.
Okay.
And the people are just so nice, and it's so welcoming when you come here and see the greeting of the people, and the people are just so warm, and it's just amazing. It's different than America.
Okay, right then. But it's interesting you've been in this country 4 times in just a year. What are you and your beautiful wife doing in Ghana? What have you been up to here in this country?
Well, the first time I came to visit in Abeshua, the mountain, Prayer Mountain, and I heard so much about it. I've had some prophets from Ghana minister in Michigan, Detroit, at our ministry and on our network, and I heard so much about this Prayer Mountain in Abeshua, and so I wanted to come and visit. To go on the mountain to pray. And when we went there, we were instructed how to climb the mountain and how long we were going to be up there. But Prophet Bernard told me that there were people at the bottom of the mountain that needed help.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know anything about Abeshua, and I knew little about Ghana. I spent a lot of time in South Africa.
Okay.
A lot of time in South Africa, back in Mandela's day, Winnie Mandela and Mandela. And coming here was a different experience than going to South Africa. And so when we saw the people, I never seen anything like it in my life. Never. I could never imagine people were in that stress and destitute. And I saw the people, and we had to do something about it.
Okay. So is that your motivation of, crisscrossing Ghana like that 4 times in a year?
Yes, no question. I only came back 4 times because of the people. When I saw the need of the people and how they were living, the chief in that community, his living condition, and the people around were, we brought in food, rice, oil, drinks, and things like that, just to give the people something to bring them some hope.
Okay.
And so when the chief said that they needed a roof on the school, and I looked at it and said, well, we're going to build a junior high school. So we built a junior high school in a matter of, I think it was 7 months.
Wow.
A junior high school, and we brought fresh water, and then we brought in, we built a palace for the chief.
Okay.
And then we built bathrooms because the students they have nowhere to go to a restroom. At a restroom. I mean, I couldn't believe it. How can they learn and they don't have a condition to learn? And going without food. How can you learn and your stomach is telling you get to eat? So we brought food in to help them, and we built a restroom where they can go and relieve themselves, wash their hands, and go back into their classroom. So when I left the first time, which was November of 23, I came back in 24, and we dedicated the junior high school. And so I began to see different things that was needed in that community. And my whole thought is that people would say, well, why would you do this? Because it's people.
Yeah.
It's my people. And so in America, I'm the president and the CEO of the largest African-American media with Christian faith network, Impact Network. You can go online and look at the Impact Network. Impact Network getting over 100 million homes. So I influence people every day. I come on 4 times a day, 5 times a day in America. So I'm known in America. And so I could not come back and not come back without bringing something in to help the people.
And of course, the name of your organization is Impact Network.
Impact Network.
So you go about impacting communities.
That's it.
But so, I mean, in record time, you provide schools, water, palace. I'm told about even a computer lab, which is stocked with computers.
Yes.
The question is, where do you get all these funding? Where does the funding come from?
Oh, again, as I said, I'm not only a pastor of a large congregation. I am an entrepreneur. I am a businessman.
Okay.
And also I have people who follow me. As I said, we're impacted in over 100 million homes. So I influence people. I mean, sitting here talking to you, I'm used to being in front of camera.
Yeah.
So there's no problem with that. And so I ask the people to help me help the people here in Ghana. And people have donated, and my own ministry, the Impact Network, and my ministry, Great Faith Ministries, my wife and myself, that's where the funding is coming from.
Okay, okay.
We have had no outside government help, no outside help from anybody. It all came within our ministry, Great Faith Ministries, Impact Television Network, and the support of my partners.
Okay. May God bless you and bless your partners as well for what you're doing.
Thank you.
But is it just because of the people? What kind of benefit do you get from doing the things you do?
Let me tell you the kind of benefit I get. If you see people hungry, Jesus said in the 25th chapter of the book of Matthew, verse 35, he said, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. He said, I was in prison and you visited me. I was sick and you came to me. He said, but when did we see you hungry, thirsty, naked, a stranger? He said, as much as you do it to the least of the little ones, you have done it unto me. So my motivation is doing the work of Jesus. How many cars can I drive? How many mansions can I live in? How much gold can I have a big place in America. I can't live in all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
I can't drive all my cars at the same time. I can't wear the gold that I have. So what am I going to do with it? I'm going to help somebody else. So your question was, what is it benefiting me? A dark soul will see someone in need. And a dark soul say, so what? It's about me. But a soul that is in touch with humanity, my voice would be worthless as a preacher if I didn't help others. If I prophesied, if I got up there and hollered at you and did not see your need. See, Jesus went to the people. People say, well, why don't you go to a more affluent area? Because if Jesus was walking on the face of the earth today, he would go to the poorest of the poor. Jesus didn't hang out in the palaces. He hung out with those who need it. And so a soul that is alive will see your need and reach out to you and make your life better. That's what it's all about. A dark soul cares nothing about no one but himself. If you hit a dog on the side of the street, you would have compassion for that dog. If you see a child begging, I've never seen anything like this in my life. What benefits me? You know what? Because when I feel good, when I help others, I'm not bringing light. These children never seen a computer. We're here today because in this community, they needed education. Jesus invested in people. So when you look at people and children who, and we got the best too. We didn't bring anything. Someone say, well, it's a village. You don't have to have that much professionalism. I say, no. We're going to bring the best. They got air conditioning. In the computer center, there's an air conditioning.
Interesting.
Air conditioning. We have high-tech computers. We bought 60 computers to allow the children of Ghana to be able to touch the world. Without a computer, how can you communicate? You may have the next president in that school. So if I can bring light and let you know that God cares about you and bring your consciousness, because if I get your consciousness where it's supposed to go, it makes no difference that you're white or black, because we're God's children. It's about the investment in people.
So you're living the word of Christ, who says, if you do for your neighbor, you do for me.
That's right.
And on that day, I'll ask you, when your neighbor was hungry, when I was hungry, you didn't do for me because your neighbor was hungry, you didn't. Interesting. I said all of these beautiful things you've done. And I asked myself, okay, so you've built a computer lab, teachers, you want to put up a teacher's quarters, you built palace, a classroom, and what have you. What is next for the Jackson Foundation that you founded?
Well, the Jackson Foundation, what we want to do is, first of all, the teachers, because I'm learning about Ghana, I'm learning about the village, and so they're telling me more about the conditions. So the next thing needs to be done is to get a teacher's quarters, because the teachers must come from far, teach the children, and have no place to go. We want to build a place there for them, because if you got a school and the teachers are not there, what good is it? Like having a car and no driver. So what we're doing is building the teachers' quarters where the teachers can have dignity, where they can have restrooms and have facility where they have the conditioned mind to condition the people. So we build that's next. After we dedicated the computer lab, we need good teachers to teach them how to do it.
Yeah.
And so after we do that, and that's our task for this year, 2025, one of them, but the people are very resourceful here. I see the people with baskets on their heads and walking, and I can't imagine. Sometimes I just get out the car and say, listen, here, take this. And I just can't imagine these women who have babies on their backs and selling and out there. They're very resourceful. Give them tools. If we can give a person the tools, then they're going to do it for themselves, because I see it out there every day. So let's build commerce. Let's take, look at that mountain. And I've been talking with the Paramount Chief. Paramount Chief and he wants me to be a part of his cabinet.
Once you are bringing development to the area, you should be part. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I'm learning the tribes. I'm learning, because in America we don't have such things. So I'm learning, and I'm trying to be a Ghanaian, right?
Yeah, Ghanaian.
Yeah, and we want to bring resource. You have thousands of people go to that mountain. Like I said, Prophet Prempeh have been to America many times and been with me, ate with me.
Oh, so you mean Prophet Prempeh?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
You know him?
Yes, I know him. But the way the name was sounding, I didn't get it well.
Okay, yeah, Prophet Prempeh.
Prempeh. I know him. Very great man of God, yes.
Yeah, he's been with me. He's like family.
And he also loves philanthropy. So
yes,
I get it when,
yes,
you are into philanthropy. So probably you share common things.
Yes, we share. And like, 'cause he come to America, sit at my table, ate, and drove with me. So he told me about that mountain.
Okay.
And so now I'm telling people, because my voice is in United States, I'm telling people about the mountain. Let's bring more resources. Let's bring businesses in that area where we can have maybe a hotel, and we're always thinking. And my guide here been Prophet Bernard. For Prophet Bernard, if it had not been for him, I wouldn't even know those people existed.
So Bernard L. Bernard Eshen?
Bernard L.
Bernard Shen, is that the one?
Yes, the one who brought me here. And so he's my spiritual son. And every time I come, he navigates us and he tells me what the need is because he must communicate with me about what's going on. So he is a man that is not selfish because he pointed me to the people.
Okay. Okay.
He pointed me to the people. And he's more concerned about the people than himself. Because the resources that I've sent to him, he could have ran off somewhere and never seen them again. But I have sent a lot of money to him.
Okay. Okay.
And so he makes sure the job is done. Prophet Bernard is my spiritual son, and he navigates me. Yeah.
That's why you're a man of God. So
yes.
Living by that example.
Exactly. You know what? So many people call themselves men of God, but they ain't no men of God.
Yeah.
A man of God. You know, so many people, and what I don't like, and I'm not here to criticize nobody. That ain't the reason I'm here. I'm here to say, Jesus said this. He said, you will know the tree by the fruit it bears. So you can call yourself a man of God, and you can call yourself whatever. But if I'm looking at your tree and seeing your fruit, and your fruit is telling me different. You tell me that's an apple tree, but I'm seeing something else. You want me to believe a lie?
Okay. But so, in terms of, you say you see women carrying things on their head whilst carrying their babies. Has there been plans to set up, say, or help some people to set up businesses?
Yes.
So they could, take care of the things you're doing?
Yes.
Because you can't always be there for them. They have to then support the things, or take care of the things they're doing. So are there plans like that, or have you even begun already?
Well, I'm getting together, and I said, the 4 times I came, I was focused in on certain projects.
Okay.
When I saw the chief living in conditions, and when I sat down to meet him, it was so unbearable, I couldn't even hardly stand it.
Okay.
I couldn't stand it. And so they said the chief needed a place. So we built him a palace in about 7 months. So don't tell me what you can't do. If I came over from America in 7 months, brought fresh water, by the grace of God, because it's not about me, it's about people who are willing to help people.
Yeah.
So now you have the chief in the palace, living good, you have water in the community, you have restroom for the children to go and relieve themselves.
Yeah.
And now you have this big library that I dedicated in the name of my father, Horace Jackson. It's an honor for me to say that we got this library and this tech center up with 60 computers, overflow. And so now I'm looking at that and I said, now what's the next step? A visionary always has the future in his mind.
Yes.
And his visionary always wants to help other people. The reason this Apple phone is in existence because someone had a vision. He was thinking beyond what was there. We always think beyond what was there. Now in America, America has 40-something million African people descent. We had no black, we had white, and we had other TV networks, faith TV networks. We're very spiritual people. You know that. We're very spiritual people.
Yeah.
Because we had to believe God. Even slavery, we had to believe God for our deliverance. And everyone, and I ain't knocking nobody, because whatever you do, that's on you. But I saw a need that we had no black TV station network, not TV station, because the TV station is local. A network covers the whole United States. Like a CNN or a Fox, those are TV networks. And so we started the first one in America. The first black man. Because what? I had a vision. And the vision was that out of 40-something million African Americans in the United States of America, and we have no representation, I have to go to someone else to ask, and you got some powerful preachers in America, but we had to always go to the other person to ask for permission to have our gospel preached. But now, African Americans got a place, they can go to Impact Network.
Okay.
I make movies, we produce movies, and we produce entertainment, because we must control what our people hear and what our people see. Because if I'm always looking at a man who called himself Jesus, and he's white, Jesus wasn't white.
Okay.
I'm just talking now.
Yes.
You asked me to come on, and I'm going to speak the truth. And so if I'm looking at a white man saying that he's Jesus, I'm going to feel inferior. I got to see somebody in my image that's successful.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. But you've crisscrossed Ghana 4 times in a year. Why Ghana and not any other African country?
Because the mountain drew me here.
Okay.
As I said, I spent time in South Africa, years in South Africa, and I thought I was not coming back to Africa at all.
Okay.
A prophet told me, you're going back to Africa. I had no interest in going back to Africa.
Oh.
I was too busy, business and things I'm doing in America. But when my birthday came, and I said, I'm going to go to the mountain, I met Prophet Bernard, and he told me, he took me there. And the reason that you can't, it's only so much that anybody can do. But what's important is that if we all get together, I see a lot of business people. Let me first answer your question. Why this area?
Yeah.
Because that's where I saw the need. And I feel that at that mountain, there's so much prayer going on. Come on. All right, prayer, the Bible says faith without works is dead. So we got to do some works. Get off your knees, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't get where we are by sitting around just dreaming. I prayed and I got up. And I want to lighten people's mind. And don't get me wrong, and don't hold me guilty, because I love everybody, but I love my people. When I look at you, you look like me. And I look at you, you know, this is where I came from. My ancestors came from here. So why would I go to Europe? I come here to do what I can do, and hopefully we'll be able to make a difference.
Okay. Now, I also get the sense that through what you're doing in Abesia, you're trying to, like you said earlier, encourage more people to come and invest in the place, and by extension, Ghana. How is that campaign going, getting more people to come and invest in Ghana?
Well, we're talking about it. We're motivating people, and media is the best way of getting the word out. Just like I'm here on Joy TV, and to see, your operation here and everything, and it's really good. But the media is the voice.
Yeah.
And so if I can get people and enlighten people through media, through America, say, listen, follow me. Let's come. Let's make a difference. Let's give people tools to work, because if they have tools to work, you can't build without a hammer. I'll give you a hammer, give you a nail, and you can do because I know you're smart enough to do it. And I know you're made in God's image. So don't give me that, you're black or you're whatever. It makes no difference. It's all about giving tools. So I get the word out, and like I said, I just been here about a year, and I want to continue to invest in people and give them tools to work for themselves. So every person in Ghana who see their brothers and sisters, because Jesus said, my neighbor, if you have wealth, share it with someone else, period.
Yeah.
Share it with some mother who's begging. I mean, I'm overwhelmed. Daddy, 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 I have 10 kids. Daddy, daddy, daddy. Well, you only can help so many people. I had to tell my wife, they're not my children, you know, they call me daddy. No, but all joking aside, if we have people, and I see a lot of foreigners here. Now, why are the foreigners here? And I'm not knocking them. They're here to extract resources. Why don't we have them take care of village? Why is it not, I'm asking, this is the questions I'm asking. Whatever people do with their money, that's on them. But why not take some of the resources that you're taking out of this country and putting resources back into people's lives? So we can get people to wake up and say, listen, I'm going to take a responsibility, help a village, help someone else. We can all, no one person can do it. Jesus Christ couldn't do it by himself. He had 12 apostles. So then he had many, many other followers after that. So we're working towards getting more people to come to Ghana and to let's bring some resources and be able to help our community.
Okay. I saw a video a short while ago on the television. I don't know if that's the Chief's Palace or that's a computer.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. The one with the green roofing.
With the what?
With the green roofing.
Yes.
Oh, that's the Chief's Palace. Okay.
Yes, that's the one we built.
Okay. That's beautiful.
Now, we're not going to build nothing mediocre.
Okay.
Because it doesn't represent God.
Yeah.
And we speak with a spirit of excellence.
Okay. Now, I read that you have a link with many of the powerful heads of state. I mean, Bill Clinton, you're even very close to Mandela, you mentioned him there. But I also read that you have a particularly strong relationship with U.S. President Donald J. Trump.
Well, this is Donald Trump, President Trump, met with me. He came to Detroit and met with me. This is his first term.
Okay.
Now, politics is politics. Politicians, and as I said, I done met with heads of states, whether it's President Bush, President Clinton, and Obama. I mean, I met with all these people. President Trump had, he came to Detroit, met with me. I interviewed him on the Impact Network, on my station, on my network. He invited me to do the inaugural prayer.
Oh, okay.
And invited me to his Christmas dinner. I prayed for he and his wife, as you can see on the screen. I mean, there he is right there, yeah. I met with all of them. I'm the one that gave the last words at the inauguration. And that was the first one.
Okay.
And they have one, they show it, there I am praying for he and his wife.
Oh, okay.
At the White House.
Ah, interesting. Then let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Now, back in the U.S., President Trump has issued several executive orders, approved policies that in a way affect Africans. You know, of the recent USAID thing that we are all looking forward to see whether it will come back or not. And these affect Africans directly, including Ghanaians. What do you make of that? Because he is your friend and he is
But you keep saying he's my friend. He's a politician.
Well, but you and I are a politician.
But
he's a politician.
I have met with all kinds of heads of state. I done met with Muammar Gaddafi before.
Okay.
I done met with Yasser Arafat years ago. I met with politicians. I done met with actors and actresses. My son is a big actor in United States. He's a big actor. So I met with all these people. But what's important to me is the people who have no helper.
Okay, so what do you make of his directive?
What?
His directive that affect Africans.
Well, I mean, anything that takes away from the people, I'm not for it.
Okay.
Anything that takes away from the people, I don't care who it is.
Okay.
And hopefully and prayerfully, there's enough of prayers coming out of Africa to change his mind.
Okay. All right. But you know what? I'm impressed with what you're doing. But I'm only hurt that, you know, where I'm from, we are not benefiting from this. I don't know what your aim is to extend to other parts of the country. But if you want to extend to other parts of the country, yeah, I would encourage that you look towards where I'm coming from. I come from Ahanta West.
Okay.
And
now, how far is that from?
Oh, it's about, say, 5-6 hours from here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but you can fly. You can fly 25 minutes to Takrady, and it takes you an hour to get to where I'm from. Now, there's a place called Cape 3 Point. It's associated with the oil. And there are quite poverty, endemic communities in there as well. I don't know, maybe one day if you want to extend from Ashanti region to Western, would love you to help our people down there as well.
I would love to do that. I'm gonna tell you what. I'm appealing. Where's the camera? What camera I'm looking at? Right there.
Yeah.
I'm appealing to businessmen, people who have money. I have big cars, big places, but as I said, you only can spend so much. So let's join together. Let's join together and let's be very resourceful. In America and Ghana joining together. And let's hit other places, such as the one you're talking about.
Ahanta West, Cape 3 Point.
That's it.
Yeah.
A woman, a doctor, the head of the medical team, because we failed to mention this before we go off. I do want to mention this. I didn't just come by myself. I brought a team with me.
Oh, okay.
My wife and I are not just by ourselves. I brought a team with me, doctors, nurses, resources. We set one day up and we brought in a whole crate from America. Food, medical supplies, sanitary napkins for the young girls in school, all kinds of resources. We shipped it from America. We had a day where we did blood pressure, we did medical examinations. We spent one day in the hot sun doing that in that community. We had different doctors come in and help us. And then we had the head of the director of the medical, her name is Susie.
Okay.
She said, "Can you help me, Apostle Jackson?" The doctors in the delivery room stay in the same quarters that they're delivering babies. They have a curtain up, and on one side of the curtain, they're delivering babies.
Okay.
On the other side, the doctors are trying to get some rest.
Okay.
Now, how in the world are you going to get some rest and the woman in the next, beyond the curtain, hollering? I was in the delivery room with my wife.
Okay.
And those women were in there hollering, so I would never want to have a child.
So you want to change it?
I want to change it.
Okay.
I need help.
Okay.
If anybody willing to want me to help and want to bring resources to the table, let's make it happen.
Okay. All right.
And we'll come over where you are.
All right then. Yes, I'll be happy to see you come to my area in Ahanta West. Well, thank you so much. Apostle T. Jackson, Apostle Wayne T. Jackson is the founder and president of the Impact Network, the only all-African American founded and operated national Christian television network, which is now in over 100 million homes in America. Well, thank you so much for gracing our show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And keep enjoying Ghana.
Yeah,
We'll take a break here, and after that, we'll bring you E-Corner with the lady of the moment, Noella. Do stay on and enjoy her to the fullest.
Oh, hello there. Oh, hi. I remember this face. Do you remember mine? Anyways, I'm back on your screens. It's a Friday. And you know we love Fridays, right? Yeah, 2 reasons why we love Fridays. It begins our weekend, and we absolutely love and enjoy the weekend, don't we? Plus, we get to watch E-Corner on the AM show on Joy News, isn't it? So yeah, you're welcome, and it's great to see you. once again. I've got real stories today and all the tea you didn't know you needed. So grab a seat, grab a drink, because today's lineup is pretty loaded. And we'll kick things off by talking fame. Yeah, that thing almost everybody loves to chase, but a few can handle. Ghana's very own Jay DeRobbie is sharing his regrets, and trust me, social media had a lot to say about it. Did he really mean what he said? Well, we'll find out, and then we'll jet over to comedian Michael Blackson, I beg your pardon, who gave back to his hometown with a free school only for his big investment plan, Ghana's Eurobond, to run into trouble. Now, how's that playing out? The tea is piping hot. And then we'll share with you some really sad news. It's the reason why I'm clad in black today. That news was broken last night, was broken last night. So much to unpack right here on the show. It's really a sad story, but I'll be sharing all of that right here with you. And so don't go nowhere. I'll be right back. And you're welcome back. It's Noella Karaniani on your favorite E-Corner right here on the AM show. Let's get sipping, shall we? And to begin, let's talk about fame. I'm sure if I should ask any of you to define what fame is, some of you would define it as, the state of being widely known, recognized, or admired by many people, often due to visibility, achievement, or even influence. Now, if you're like me, who sometimes love to be a bit philosophical, then we can define fame as either proof of impact, a fleeting echo of one's actions, or one's desire to be remembered, beyond a particular moment. Now, some also believe fame is bad due to the superficial validation, the pressure to maintain an image, loneliness, and a distorted sense of self that's associated with fame. And one of those people is a young man called Derek Obuobi Jr. I know it doesn't ring a bell. It's fine. So I brought you a story. I brought you a picture. I beg your pardon. So that's him. He's a musician with a stage name, Jay DeRobbie. Now, in 2019, I'm going to tell you a story, okay? And so follow. I need you to follow the story keenly. So in 2019, musician Mr. Easy launched an initiative aimed at discovering, the continent's next big music stars called Empower 100. And amongst the thousands of people that partook in that initiative was the young man Jay DeRobbie, who made a mark with this entry.
Hey. In my life, me no want far, me no far, me no want dark, me no dark.
And that freestyle simply captured on his mobile phone. I don't know what brand he was using at the time. You can tell by the, the quality. But yeah, you can tell it's not a combo kakra. But that freestyle did not only earn him praises from Mr. Easy himself, it earned him praises from Stonebwoy, from Shatta Wale, from Jamaican stars like Popcan and Cranium. Now, it also earned him a slot in the short list of selected artists. And beyond that, his freestyle was also later recorded into a song. He named that song Poverty. It went viral, and the song's success also led to a record deal with Empower Africa. That's Mr. Easy's record label. A remix that featured Popcan, and the 2020 Ghana Music Awards Reggae Dancehall Song of the Year award. Plus, a beautiful video was shot for the song. Watch. So that was Poverty, beautiful song. I fell in love with the song back in 2022 when it was released, and I'm still in love with it till today. Now, after Poverty and still under Empower, he released an album titled Grains from Love and Reality. And then, their relationship went on and on and on. It was peaceful, it was great. And then one morning we woke up to news of him parting ways with Empower. Don't ask me why, because I really don't know. I literally don't know why he parted ways with that record label. But what I do know is that following that news, he released a couple of really nice songs, I must say. I mean, I'm not too sure about how well those songs were promoted, because he released some really, really great, tracks. But long story short, he came by the Hit Studio this week, had a warm conversation with my colleague Dorian Avio, and then he was asked about the one thing he regrets so far in his journey, and you want to watch this.
I think the narrative that is out there is like the caption. The caption that is out there is like people are...
What is that one thing you regret since you started doing music?
Fame.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, sometimes it like people don't understand how it works, so it gets tiring. Like people, like you don't have your freedom. It's like you don't everywhere you go they know you.
Oh, you're not able to go buy your watch.
You know, go like if you
can't go and buy your cocoa.
So sometimes I just don't mind too much, because if you watch there too much, you'll be boxed, and when you are boxed in that way, like you start feeling stress and all that. So,
but you will say that you used to worry about it, but now not.
Yeah,
you don't.
I don't worry about those things. Like if I want to go and buy my watch, sometimes oh super, let me buy for you. Oh no, make her go. I know what they do.
Don't you think it's the Rasta that has made you feel like that now?
No, it's like waking up.
It's waking up,
being conscious of
and
yourself.
Be like, are they?
No, ma'am, let me go. I
mean, when you were doing all your music, the fame that came to you and all that, where did you think you were headed to at that point when like things started picking up and things were going well for you?
I imagined me heading to the top, and I still have that dream. You know, I still have that dream that I will make it to the top, that I will win Grammy and things. Yeah, I still have that dream.
Right.
And I think in whatever that happens, it's still on the right channel to the top.
All right, so that was Jay DeRobbie, with his biggest regrets in life, and that happens to be fame. But listen, the interview found its way on social media, and it elicited a lot of backlash. A lot of people sort of maybe heard it wrongly, did not hear it right, but they drew their own conclusions to what he had to say. And the heat was so intense on social media, he had to call into the show the next morning to clarify what he meant by saying that his biggest regret is fame. And he explained. I wanted to play that, but I'm trying to manage my time here so I can give you more stories, right? So I'm gonna, paraphrase what he said. So basically he says that he hates or he regrets what fame has disallowed him to do. So when he wasn't famous, when nobody knew him as Jay DeRobbie, he could go and buy his watch, his cocoa on the streets, take his trotro, his taxi and everything. And nobody really cares about him like that. But following the fame he had, or the level of success he had, a lot of things, has been restricted. He isn't able to, live as freely as he would love to live. So that was the clarification. But anyways, he has released an EP called Firm After All. If we can take a look at that EP. So that is it, Firm After All. I've listened to it myself. It has 6 tracks on it. I've listened to it myself. Pretty nice songs. And so, yeah, you should really check it out. But for those of you who are clueless about what an EP is, it stands for Extended Play, which is a musical recording that contains more tracks than a single, but is shorter than a full album. So, yeah, check out Jay DeRobbie's latest EP and let me know what you think, okay? I'd love to hear from you. But anyways, let's move away from that, and can we now talk about Michael Blackson? Rings a bell? It doesn't? Does it? Well, if you don't know him, don't worry. I'll tell you all about him. So, this is Michael Blackson, okay? He is a Ghanaian, Liberian, American comedian, an actor, known for his wits, his African accent, and unique style of comedy. I mean, his comedy really blends African and American cultural experiences together. So you can tell how, you know, nice and original his pieces are. Now, his real name is Jafari Ferguson, okay? And he was born right here in Ghana. He actually moved to the United States in the late 1980s, where he began pursuing stand-up comedy. And that career, I understand, was inspired by the legendary Eddie Murphy. Now, if none of the things I have said so far about him resonates with you, then maybe the fact that he featured in, you know, popular shows, I beg your pardon, like Wild and Out, beautiful content, you should check it out, and also featured in Meet the Blacks or Coming to America, released in 2021, maybe that might make you remember who he is. If not, then I'm sorry, I tried. But anyways, what's the tea? The tea is, after years of hustling, doing only God knows what, in the Yanks. For those of you who don't know what the Yanks is, you need to acclimatize with a new way of, you know, speaking, especially in this era of Gen Zs. It's called code talk. So when I say Yanks, I mean America, okay? Yeah. So after hustling in the Yanks, this man in 2022 did the noble thing of coming back to his roots right here in Ghana to give back. And how did he give back? Well, he built a state-of-the-art educational facility called the Michael Blackson Academy in his hometown, Agunan Sabah, in the central region. And here's the kick. That school, a private school, provides free education. So yeah, those are images of the school I'm talking about. Maybe you're thinking of those kind of, you know, normal-looking school edifices or whatever. This is American standard, okay? So yeah, a private school free of charge in Ghana is possible. Very, very possible. But there was a reason why a private school like his providing quality education for free was possible. And that was because he invested a staggering $1.2 million United States Donald Trump dollars in Ghana's Eurobond. And according to him, the interest promised him, this is according to him, not me. According to him, the interest promised him was 9%, which meant that he would be paid $10,000 each month. And of course, that was going to be what the school will run on. Now, keep what I just said in mind while I take you back to September last year, okay? Keep that in mind. Now, in September last year, Michael made a couple of tweets expressing frustration over a certain investment. And you know me, I brought receipts with me. And so, Director, let's take a look at the receipts I brought, some of the tweets that he shared on social media, his X account, actually. So he says, who's the Minister of Finance in Ghana? I have a beef with this guy. People of the diaspora decided to invest in our continent, and they used our money to pay their debt and gave us two options. Either take a 37% cut and receive 5% interest with 11 years maturity date, or no cut but 1.9% interest with 15 years maturity date. I'm very disappointed in my people for this. Next tweet, quickly, time is not our best friend. Next tweet, no, this is not the next tweet. But anyway, he literally just, shared his frustration on social media, talking about how he invested in the Eurobond, and then, he got, in his words, robbed. Now, while he stopped for a while, he stopped tweeting for a while, and some of us thought that maybe he could have been sorted out or something. Turns out, there's more to the story. Watch.
So this is what happened. So we put the money up. I probably it made one payment. The payment stopped. And, and this was right around COVID time. I spoke to the lady at the bank. She said, they're just having a little issue. The government, they're in debt. They borrowed money from China, COVID, bunch of excuses, which is excuses to me. But then I spoke to one guy that worked for that particular regime. So the particular Ministry of Finance from the NPP regime, we have Democrat here and Republican. Here in Ghana, they have the big ones are NPP and NDC. Mm-hmm. So at that particular time, NPP was in office. So they are the one to be blamed for it, not Ghana. Ghana is a great country with great people. I apologize to my Ghana for what I said, but I'm blaming it on the NPP. They decided to use our money to pay whatever debt it is, and then you know what it said to us? It said, you know, thank you for helping us save the country. We didn't hear nothing for now. It's going on 2 years, no payment. So now how am I gonna go find new money to pay for the school? You know, and now I'm funding out of my pocket. Now my money is on hold, and you know. So I spoke to the bank lady. She said, Mike, they're gonna figure this out. You know, just a little issue, but everything should be okay. I said, okay, cool.
2 years later.
2 years later, then I hit up one of my guys that worked for that regime. I said, yo, man, what's up with your government? You know? He's like, Mike, I'll get you your money back, but I'm gonna need 10%. Right? And trust me, I wish I would have did that.
So that was Michael Blackson opening up on his predicament with the Eurobond, talked about how a certain government official offered to get his investment back, or his investment money back for him, but he needed a 10% cut. Long story short, this week, you know, the presidency released a statement communicating that His Excellency John Mahama had directed the Finance Ministry to settle the DDEP coupons, which is essentially government paying back or finally paying back parts of the money they owe those who bought government bonds and suffered haircuts some years ago. And that included Michael Blackson. And so he shared that on social media. And he says, look at God. This is a very great start for all bondholders. As of today, I'm officially a member of the NDC party. JD Mahama, you just put a smile on the faces of the kids at my free school. So yeah, we're happy he's happy. He's gotten part of his money back. Let's move away from that quickly and bring you a very sad story. It's an unfortunate news that broke last night, and it's about the passing of one of our veteran actors, Maoli Semafor. If you don't know him, that is him. That's his picture. We understand he passed at the Ridge Hospital here in Accra, where he was receiving treatment after suffering burns from a fire accident about a week ago. Now, it was a story I considered sharing with you, but I also thought about how sensitive it was, and I left it as is. So last 2 weeks, Saturday actually, a certain lady named Judith Addison of Beyond Burns International, which is a dedicated non-profit organization committed to providing advocacy and support for burn survivors, actually shared that story. And the story was also corroborated by his colleague, actors, you know, they solicited for funds. I saw the likes of Sewa Mihe also answering that call, went to the hospital, gave them some, you know, cash to take care of him. And so we were all hoping that we would hear some good news. He would come out of that, you know, situation in good health. It didn't. And it's such a sad story. But yeah, we'll be following developments of this particular story keenly and bring you updates if we should have any. Until then, this is where we draw the curtains on E-Corner today. Unfortunately, we're ending on a very sad note, but brace.
Yeah,
how's it going?
It's
very
a sad. Yeah, it's a sad one that we lost him.
Yeah.
May his soul rest in perfect peace. Well, this is how we wrap up this week's AM show. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace. Na mama kam kran da mai mo an kanya mun zai gira mze mu na ye hoya you know. De kama obela ne mo wan le card and ni na kre card and ni na ye ode. So to all of you, we are grateful to you. We'll meet again, God willing, some other time. But meet Sweetie and Ben on Monday. Coming up next is New Desk with Frosty. You know, I don't want to mention the other name, but yes, stay on for that one. Good morning.